We have signal. Signal confirmed. Verifying. Decrypting. It's the History Homos podcast. Scott, William, and Patrick cutting through all the slop and trash. Informational snow crash. Go back. Go back. MK Ultra, go insane.
And we're live. Welcome back to the show. Joining us this week, as usual, Patrick is my erstwhile companion. And joining us this week, very special interview with an interesting figure that I was just introduced to this week. Marcel Gautreau, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Good to meet you all.
Now, before we start, I just have to give a shout out real quick to a listener of the show. Roden is the guy who sent me who's the guy who sent me you, Marcel. And he said, Scott, I noticed that you had just recently done, you and Patrick had recently done an episode on sort of the Peter Thiel led new, like sort of dissident air quotes oeuvre, if you will. And this guy's really up your alley, so you should go check out his Substack. And so I did, and actually I will say this, initially I had said I'll get Patrick to take a look at it, and then we'll see what it is. But I went to your page, Marcel, and I was like, I said, this demands my attention. I'm going directly to the source. And I immediately reached out to you. Immediately reached out to you and said, okay, a guy, first of all, just me. Am I correct to understand that you're a fellow at the Mises Institute?
Yeah, I've been there over multiple summers.
Okay, that's awesome. So yeah, so definitely fellow travelers are certainly in my history, at least, for sure. So I'm very excited to have this conversation. But Marcel, you did this series of articles called Gangweed Conservatism on Substack. So we're also on Substack, by the way. So we're buds on that front. But you did this amazing write-up, 6 parts that sort of it documents and not just that, but also sort of like it has receipts. You got receipts on a lot of this stuff as far as the like major new wave, if you will, third wave, if you will, of this like promotion of like just broadly drug culture and drug acceptance, but more pointedly like the psychedelic experience with what is broadly referred to as like the dissident, or even also truly though in the entire right wing
Yeah,
is kind of
it's
has this whole new outlook on the psychedelic experience. So what got you interested in this?
man, I truly wish I could remember exactly what like first set me on the path. But I was listening to another podcast I do believe, and they said like, you notice that all these guys are just into um are just into psychedelics and is pushing it. Oh, it was a Rod Dreher article. That first Rod Dreher article, the
Yeah.
one, the
And
principalities and power.
one of his fake people that he
His many
talks
fake
to.
friends.
Yeah.
Yes, I talked about it. So many things in the articles are often like digressions about like stupid things. Like, by the way, Roger always has these fake friends, like an Asian listener or an
Yeah.
Ethiopian taxi driver. But yeah, it was that. Another podcast that I listened to on, I don't know if your listeners know what TRS is, but if
I'm
you know what
familiar with
TRS
them. Yeah,
is,
of course.
yeah. So
Yeah.
they were talking about this, and so I went all in on, I was like, I started just looking at all the articles they were talking about. It's like, wow, like they're bringing this up, and they said like, well, somebody should do something about this. And I was like, you know what, I'll do it.
Yeah. I'll be the guy. I'll
They,
fall on the grenade for this.
I'll
Yeah.
do it. Yeah,
Yeah. You did
Um,
it well in 6 parts. It's officially a saga.
yeah. It was originally going to be like a one article, God knows what, 20 to 30,000 words, and I showed it to people, and Marcel, I'm not reading this. I was like, yeah, all right. That means I had to revamp the whole thing and start actually breaking it up into a proper
right.
structure. And so the organizational structure I kind of went with was, so the first one was about the Christian right. The second was just sort of mainstream Republicans. The third was about sort of military industrial complex people.
Yeah.
The fourth was sort of the Joe Rogan, Elon, intellectual dark web kind of thing. And then 5 was like, okay, but seriously, who's funding this?
Right.
And then 6 was, we were kind of off to the races on 6.
For sure. Yeah, you kind of dipped into the red pill bottle for that one. But no, for sure. And actually to that end, actually, I think you really hit on the nail right there is when you listed all those different groups. I'm just hearing the same group over and over again, frankly. This is the reality of it. I don't remember if you touched on the National Policy Institute in your article or not, but
Richard Spencer's thing, or
is it or is
Uh,
that
CNP.
no, sorry, yeah, you're right. The National Policy Institute is Richard
Council
Spencer.
for National Policy.
Council for National Policy. I get them mixed up sometimes.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, so that is so. Reverend Sun Young Moon was a charter member of it, if I'm not mistaken. Also, the lady who started the Moral Majority. I don't remember what her name was, but regardless, it's this massive think tank, right wing think tank that like I believe like Joe Rogan and like Alex Jones are like certainly like attendees to this thing. It's sort of like a right wing Davos kind of thing, and it's like what connects all of these like Peter Thiel like tech, military industrial complex, and like comedy and like entertainment people together. And you really got to look into this. This is great. I don't know if you've looked into the work of Matthew North before. He's really good, and I mind a lot of his. He's dead now, supposedly. I don't know. He seems to have been assassinated in his car at some point. But it's sort of, we don't know what happened to him because we only heard from like someone else that he was dead, and so there's that whole thing. But I really advise you check into that, and also we have an episode on Substack where we discuss like a bunch of his work. So, and
say again what his name is. I have the
Matthew,
Council for National Policy open, but
yeah, Matthew North is a deceased, I believe, journalist, researcher, who
Young gentleman.
yeah, young guy, and yeah, definitely was suspicious the way he died, especially after he was saying the kind of stuff he was saying online.
Unfortunately, you'll find his greatest hits on BitChute.
Yeah, that's where it is all dumped into. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
However,
But
that led us
it's
into this. Yeah, Patrick, you go ahead. I know you have as good a grasp on this stuff as I do.
oh well, that grasp is, it's very unwieldy. So I am you breaking this up into the 6 parts and distinguishing just how this I don't know, this poison leaches its way into every single subculture of of the new right, or the high right as it is now, I guess. We I I don't we lost the in general, we lost the lead a while ago, but it does. I think you made a great point. I think in the fourth or the fifth article where you said, "Do not make that old adage: do not interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake." And it is, anytime there's mum's the word in regard to a seismic change in the way that this, the world or this country, you know, acts, or how things are rolling. Um, it's worth looking into, and so it's a great thing that someone foisted this onto you, because
Yeah.
you did an excellent job with it.
If it was just one subculture, I might have let it go. Like if it was just Yarvin and Bap doing it, I might have just like it's just some dumb thing Yarvin and Bap are doing. I wouldn't have written full
Yeah.
article about it. It's like, did you know the Bap guys are pushing degeneracy? It's like, well, yeah,
Yes, clearly they're
yeah,
gay.
yeah. So there's nothing to even talk about. But once you realize, like, oh no, it's like AOC and Dan Crenshaw are seeing eyes to eye on this issue.
Yeah,
When you
good pun. I
see
noticed
that
that
like
in
Greg
the
Abbott is taking a stand on this, you know,
It's a good line.
like, okay, so this is like a strange kind of top down consensus. This isn't just a quirk of one particular subculture.
Hmm.
yeah. Um,
Absolutely.
to that end, so I think
The,
you really hone in on it pretty good. I think it's in the fifth part where you identify that, what could be the possible applications of this sort of whole program in Toto, and you sort of highlight these like groundbreaking studies, landmark studies where they introduce was it ketamine or MDMA? I can't remember, to Israelis and Palestinians, and I'm like, bingo,
Yeah,
there it
yeah,
is.
that's yeah, ayahuasca.
well, what was the line? Exercises and psychic lobotomies.
Yeah, and exercise
Yeah,
and psychedelic lobotomy.
yeah. Well, that was really eerie,
To be
to
clear, that
read.
line came from a critique of the paper by a
Right.
Palestinian who read it, thought about it for 5 seconds, and said, "Wait, what?"
It's exactly what I was thinking, what was bubbling up to the front of my head as I'm going through the paragraph. I'm like, oh, just like you mentioned previously in Nicaragua in the 80s, they were testing, what was it? Um, psychedelic therapies on soldiers and civilians
Right.
post Civil War, which it's just what a misery is. We'll go wreak havoc in these countries, and then we'll use them as testing grounds and convince them. Yeah,
Or the question is, did they make the place a battleground in order to conduct testing? That's the other chicken egg situation, really, because these people just
sure.
have like free reign to do this kind of stuff no matter where and when it is. And pretty
Yeah, I
much
mean
all of go ahead, sorry.
the war in Nicaragua with the Contras. There's actually there's two sort of interesting connections there. So if there were actually, I don't know if I wrote about experiments in Nicaragua on psychedelics there, but another one is the Iran Contra scandal. Oliver North took the rap for that, but Michael Ledeen, who was in the Bush administration,
Yeah,
if you read a book, I think it's called the Quiet War or the Silent War or something like
yeah,
this. It's like about sort of the Cold War between America and Iran in 1979, and it talks about basically all the Israeli arms merchants that were coordinating all these
for
transfers,
sure.
and
Yeah,
that rat line was really there to get weapons into the hands of like moderate generals in the Islamic Republic, and that way they would basically overthrow the Shah. And the IRGC, as we know it, had like a total overhaul to make sure that plan would never work.
right.
So Iran Contra does have some, or just the Contra War, the Nicaragua. There's just a bunch of like weird tie-ins. Although I
How about
wouldn't say that
this?
the Contra War was set up for that purpose. I think that the
Oh, for
Reagan
sure. And
administration was just like that, and the
for
opportunity
sure.
presented
It was
itself.
also a major way to just get like cocaine into the country as well. That's the other major thing of it too. But another thing is, speaking of that, thank you for putting me on this actually. But I don't know if you knew this, but Epstein was actually part of the. Thanks to our friend Johnny Vedmore, did research on Epstein. He discovered that Epstein was like part of the whole Oliver North, like the what do they call that? the organization or the enterprise,
Hmm.
and it,
Protestant International.
yeah, sure, sure. Um, and so yeah, it really is. And by the way, that just loops back in with the whole tech and like these psychedelic guys like John Brockman being the Epstein the guy who started what's the name, the Edge Foundation. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all Esalen stuff too. So like all this MK Ultra research sort of trickled back into the mainstream culture primarily through the vector of tech in the 1980s and 90s. And they did this by, first of all, making celebrities out of nerds, which was a big mistake in my opinion.
Hmm.
But
No.
and actually leading us to Kaczynski discussion here, by the way. But there was like a column in the New York Times that Kaczynski was pulling his victims from, which was was all these people who are getting highlighted by John Brockman's publishing PR firm, and they had a weekly column in the like, and they called them the Digerati, and they like highlighted all these people and made them like cool to it made him cool to be like a psychedelic computer man, and it started then.
Well, the and the I'm sorry, the overlap between, music, the psychedelic scene, and
Yeah.
these tech visionaries was, that ground was already laid for the Edge.
The book was called The Twilight War. I was like fumbling around like, was it Midnight War? No, that's not
Yeah.
right. The Dark
No,
War?
no,
The
good.
Twilight War by David Christ, but it talks about the Iran
Folks,
conflict.
get
Yeah,
that down.
Yeah, I actually haven't read that, but that book is footnoted and like referenced heavily in the Secret Life of Bill Clinton, which I also recommend. It's a very good book. It's mostly about
Yeah.
like Iran Contra stuff. But
If
yes.
actually,
in
interesting. Think
just
about Michael Ledeen. Michael Ledeen was the founder of JINSA, the Jewish Institute for National Security Affairs, and then Qasim Alamariu, in his book Selective Reading and the Birth of Philosophy, his dissertation advisor for that was also on the JINSA board.
Interesting. And that's like a BAP
Hey,
guy,
isn't that
right? That
crazy? Yeah,
Almiariu guy.
Qasim
Yeah, yeah.
Alamariu is better known by the fake name Bronze Age Pervert. Yeah,
Oh, that's him. That's the guy. Oh, that's the Mischling himself.
yeah.
Cool, cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not really
before
surprised by that at all.
And
To
since it
hear
came
the
up, we might as well talk about like sort of work it backwards, just so that people, force people into it. MK Ultra. So we're gonna bring this up. A lot of people have a very screwy idea of what MK Ultra even is,
yeah,
and sort of the story they have is sort of mind numbing, where they say, they
yeah, the
wanted
Manchurian
to
Candidate.
mind control people, but all they got was a party drug. The example I use in the article, it's like, imagine if everybody knew about the Manhattan Project, but it just never came up that the atom bombs in Hiroshima were
Right.
from that. So everybody knew like all the top scientists were working, in New Mexico, and everybody got awards for it and everything. Nobody who was working on the CIA's like remote viewing ESP exercise program, nobody got medals for that, right?
Yeah.
Nobody was getting early retirements and their name on the wall. Sidney Gottlieb got all those things. So
Yep.
just automatically, we know MK Ultra must have been at least slightly more successful, slightly more fruitful than the FBI's attempts to like, you know what I'm saying, like ESP read, the
Right.
KGB's archives.
Even Jolly and West ended up being like a fucking like basically like a tabloid figure at the end of his life, essentially, even though he is probably equally as responsible for the what we call MK Ultra today, as Sidney Gottlieb, by the way. Um, but that's just that's a great point, is that like it just it's one of those like little dirty secrets
Yeah.
of the national security state, essentially. And but the implications of it are around us everywhere. In fact, the guy who created, I would make the case that the modern entire construction of modern psychology has its basis in the MK Ultra program, particularly in light of the fact that the American Psychiatric Society adopted new protocols in the 1970s, I believe, on the basis of recommendation from the FBI's behavioral science department or bureau or whatever, where the guy who created the serial killer profile
Mhm.
is the guy his the father of the modern is the father of modern psychology, essentially. And he brags about this in his memoirs. I can't remember his name, right? It's something Irish, but he was a childhood friend of John Wayne
Bronson,
Gacy.
what
Hmm.
was his name?
Yeah, and so when I want everybody when they hear MK Ultra, just I don't know just exactly where your audience here is on this and
Oh,
how
they
best
know all about it. Yeah.
yeah. So the best way for if you want to like explain it to normally, just say this. You know, the CIA first had the Bluebird program, and that
Right.
was just straight up torture and interrogation thing. Then there was Artichoke, and Artichoke
Scopolamine.
was you might say torture interrogation research, and then and figuring out is there a way to sort of leave something behind, right? To get
Right.
information out of somebody and then implant it in. And all MK Ultra is just taking Artichoke and it's Artichoke with drugs. All MK Ultra should be properly understood as is the extraordinary rendition program, which is a matter of public record. We all understand what it is. And what if we did that, but we mix psychoactive substances and anything substance related? You know, in the original memo that Sidney Gottlieb put out that became MK Ultra, he listed off like 19 different drug effects that he wanted. And it's basically anything a spy could ever need. It's like he just
Yeah.
basically watch a James Bond movie and he's like, we should get a drug that does that. We need a drug that does that. We need a drug memory loss. Oh, that's good. Faking the flu, that's good. You know, we need a few
The heart
things.
attack gun.
The heart attack, yeah. And one thing I didn't mention in the article, but this idea like espionage pharmacology. You guys have heard of a guy named Yuri Bezmenov, you know,
Yeah,
I think
Yuri
called
Bezmenov. Yeah, 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 yeah.
thing.
He's the
You know, Yuri,
defector, right?
yeah, he was the Soviet defector from
Stage
he
magician.
fled from India and things like that. And one of the things Yuri Bezmenov mentioned in that interview, which I assume most people have seen, is that when his job was to give the official tours of the USSR to intellectuals from India,
The
so
Potemkin village type
yeah, that
thing.
whole
Yeah.
thing. He said, you know, his job, he would get people drunk. And he said that the KGB basically just gave him a pill that he would eat, he would swallow it, he could drink for a while, and like it would delay the onset of the intoxication for hours so that, you know, he could be sober while they're like, drinking with them, be sober for hours, and not until he's like home would it all like sort of hit all at once. And he didn't
Ooh.
describe what that is. He said, yeah, it's a pill the KGB gave us. That was something that Sidney Gottlieb also mentioned. Like, oh yeah, we should probably get a pill that just stops you from getting drunk. I
Right.
presume the after effect is that once the alcohol hits you all at once, it's not a pleasant experience, but
Right.
it does its job. And so all of the kinds of chemicals, if you read Stephen Kinder's book, Poisoner in Chief, I mean, you got to hand it to him. Sidney Gottlieb was pretty much a genius. Like all those things, like the poison
Sure.
pen that'll kill Castro, you know, ricin dispersal, or some kind of like neurotoxin on Zhou Enlai's food. There were all sorts of ideas he had. He was just coming up with all sorts of gadgets. So when he says, like, yeah, listen, I want to do an espionage pharmacology program with a specific goal of dosing people so I can do, you know, enhance interrogation and implant suggestion. There's no reason on earth for us to be like, ha ha, party drug.
Yeah. And then also the other little myth that they tell you is like, oh, they wanted to make a Manchurian candidate, but they failed, so they shut the program down. And it's like,
then why do you get an award, right?
yeah,
Like why do you get to retire early? Why was the committee have to recall him from like Thailand or wherever the fuck he was with his wife? You know, you think you don't get medals for failure in the CIA in the 1960s.
Right. And you also don't oversee like a bunch of money from CIA front companies getting like issued to different like remote secret operative labs around America.
Every university in the
either.
country is being used to just find every possible use of LSD.
Yeah.
Everybody should read. I mean, that's probably my, at least for the last two chapters, the last two sections of the article. Poisoner in Chief by Stephen Kinzer is the best book to read.
I have the PDF. I don't know that we ever ended up reading it for the show, but yeah, I listened to a bunch of interviews with Stephen Kinzer where he gave like on the they did that like C-SPAN interview thing. I listened to him talk about it, but yeah, definitely really interesting. Another really good resource for like real MK Ultra info is that book Chaos about the Manson family too. It's all that guy's a real normie, by the way. The guy who wrote it. In fact, to the point where me and Patrick kind of speculate that it's like a limited hangout kind of thing. But regardless, he's very careful about what he says, and therefore you get like a real normie friendly explanation of what the kind of stuff they did with MK Ultra. And by the way,
Dr. Colin Ross has some good stuff as well. Just categorizing.
Sure.
I think it's CIA doctors, just goes through records, shows you scans and so on.
Right.
Yeah. And the easiest way when somebody says that, you can't use LSD for mind control. It's like, okay, how's this? You go on LSD and I'll stay sober, and you and I are just going to talk for 3 hours. And if I told you the CIA spent 20 years and how many $1 billion using it for hypnotic suggestion, if I dose you with this psychoactive, do you think that just me, like, would you be sober with your political enemy if you're on LSD and he's not? Like,
Right.
no.
Of course not.
Any idiot, like, you wouldn't even want to be drunk with somebody who's sober and who's your political enemy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. You, well,
I don't want to be drunk around my friends when they're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't trust those guys.
yeah, it's already hard enough to convince anybody of anything that want to use drunk.
In fact,
Um,
you can see how stupid the talking point is in the other direction. Like, imagine if I just told you, hey, did you know that for, I don't know, for 3 years, the FBI did an intensive research program on how to get information out of drunk people? I mean, you would kind of be like, no fucking shit, Sherlock. What if I said,
Yeah.
but they spent 3 years researching it? Nobody would be like, well, I bet they didn't find anything useful. Like, yeah, I think if you spent 3 years researching the best way to get information out of intoxicated people, I think useful information is going to come out of that. And I think if
Right.
the guy who ran that program got an award, I think everybody would be like, yeah, I'm sure he found something incredibly interesting during that study.
Right.
So if
And that-
LSD was what they honed into, we should be like, oh, okay, so he probably found something super interesting there.
for sure.
The
And
na-
then I was just
Sorry,
gonna say though, to
yeah.
the fact is that never mind the drugs thing. Actually, we were talking about Kaczynski before, but Kaczynski was experimented on in the under the banner of MK Ultra, and there were no drugs
Reduced
applied.
dose.
However, they really screwed with his head by using like psychological techniques to break down his ego.
Yeah.
Which is arguably like it's arguably a similar thing that you are doing pharmacologically with a psychedelic drug.
Yeah. 150%. You don't have to sniff, sip, or smoke anything. If
Especially
you
if you're like
are
a 17-year-old like
idealistic,
yeah,
totally
smart kid
self-assured,
who's never
brilliant
who's
guy.
in a fish out of water at Harvard University.
And it should be clarified that the way in which Kaczynski was put in MK Ultra, it wasn't like the CIA kidnapped him or anything.
Yeah.
The CIA was like through shell companies giving out grants to basically every like bio research institute in the country, every university.
Yeah, Henry Murray, the guy who conducted it, was an OSS guy, though. For the record, he was
Oh my
like a
goodness,
CIA like guy.
Yeah, but it was like anybody who's got any potential uses for LSD. I mean, they were just crowdsourcing it. Like, what can you do with LSD? And Ted Kaczynski was in one of them. I watched on a total lark. This was like about 2 months ago. I watched like the Hulk movie from like 2003, like
The Edward Norton one.
Not the
Eric
2003 one. The first one that's in the MCU. The one with
Eric
Oh.
Bana.
I'm like blanking
Right.
on the guy's name. He was the guy from American History X. Jim
Edward-
Norton.
Edward Norton. I said that,
Ed
yeah.
Norton, okay.
Yeah.
Ed Norton.
Jim Norton.
And he talks about Opie and Anthony,
Yeah.
Marvel Universe. Anyway, when Ed
He
Norton
stinks, and I don't like him. By the way,
and Ed Norton, Bruce Banner is like he's in the car with Betty Ross, and Betty Ross is like, what's it like going Hulk? And he literally says in the movie, he's like, do you remember when they had us do those LSD trials in college? And I literally had to pause the movie and like.
wait,
cover my
that's in the
face.
fucking movie.
It's in the
Holy
movie, yes.
shit.
What?
I saw
have a
that in
screenshot of it.
theaters.
I saw it in
posted
theaters too. It went right over. I mean, I
It's
was
like
13, so
2008.
I mean, yeah.
Oh man, amazing.
Yeah, but the CIA was just giving out grants for this, and so that's what Ted Kaczynski was in. So it's not as though just to give everybody an idea of just how how normal, so to speak, it all was. Every college was getting paid to do something like this.
Absolutely, not just colleges, like prisons, federal prisons to get extra budget. They were doing. Whitey Bulger was MK Ultra, in down in Georgia, and then incidentally went on to commit massive amounts of murders while being a federal employee. But
Hey.
yeah, so and then we're not even touching on the yet on the whole serial killers or MK Ultra angle, which is palpable, of course. But no, a couple other things I wanted to talk about though is Esalen. Esalen is a biggie. I assume you're familiar with the Esalen Institute, right?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, the Esalen Institute was a CIA funded. It still exists actually. It's like, what would you call it, Patrick? It's like a retreat. It's like a psychological retreat place.
Yeah, some sort of rehabilitation retreat spa institution. Emphasis on institution.
Yeah.
once you're in, you don't leave without
And you
some
pay to go
someone
there,
selling you
right? And
out.
then they try out new psychological techniques that usually involve some sort of drug experimentation, and they let you basically it's a CIA honeypot where you where you get like compromised essentially, and they also conduct MK Ultra research on you, and it's existed since the 1960s, and it's produced. Are you familiar with the Synanon cult?
There you go.
From the
Yeah.
1970s.
Oh, these
It's
guys,
also
the greatest extras of all time.
the greatest actors of all time in George Lucas's THX 1138. But yeah, there was this cult of people who all shaved their heads. It was like a pseudo Buddhist movement where
Hmm.
they were like radical vegans, and they also had like this sort of radical,
Protestant
almost
work ethic.
Maoist. It was Maoist like sort of oriented because they had like literal struggle sessions as part of
Hmm.
like the cult, like the ritual is like to do
Yeah.
struggle sessions daily. Oh, so anyway, that's from Ezelin. Also, the family, actually, the like literally the Charles Manson family is at least like in some way. So Charles Manson was often seen to be going to the Ezelin Institute. Um,
And most recently of all, uh, the great shaman himself, Joe Rogan.
yeah, Joe
Most
Rogan
re
now
yeah,
goes to Ezelin Institute, right?
Spell this for
sessions
me.
being hosted by Aubrey Marcus.
Yep.
So th this is sort of a mainstay in Western post-modern spiritual
Yeah, new
delusion.
agey.
Oh, Esalen. Okay, I see it now.
Yeah. Um, and I believe that all ties back. Are you familiar with Thomas Pynchon, Marcel?
No, this is like the longest string of "Have you heard of X?" and I'm just totally blanked. I've
I'm
not heard of
so
a
sorry.
single one of these
We're
things. No,
real
this is totally
nerds,
great.
It's
dude.
inevitable.
Learn something new
Uh,
every day. No, this is great.
Well,
Um,
it's how I feel on the show every other day because Scott just rings shit off, and I'm like, no, that's beyond me. I don't understand that. Wasn't there for it. But
but okay,
Not
I
Thomas
think this
anymore.
this will
Pynchon,
ring.
The
This
Esalen
will ring heavy
Institute.
with you. This will ring heavy with you. So the in the 1980s, uh, what's the name of these? So Michael Aquino and what's the other guy? Paul Vallely,
Paul Valley,
wrote the Psy War paper. Or future war
nothing more to say.
paper, or also known as the Psy War paper, and they very explicitly in the abstract state that the future, what they call that, the future of military FMA, the future of military activity, is a new principle of warfare that was sort of conceived of in the 1980s, where actual traditional arms aren't as important, and it's more about the flow of information, misinformation, disinformation, the sort of stuff that we've had weaponized on us as a populace over the last 5 6 years. um
Multi-dimensional warfare.
multi
As it,
literal They
yeah,
call it multi-dimensional warfare, and
I
they
think
and very
it's
explicitly in the abstract of this paper, Michael Aquino and Vallely state that the principles of this new form of warfare, fifth dimensional warfare, for fifth generation warfare rather, was could be found in the Eslin Institute, like the principles espoused at the Eslin Institute. And also, I should mention that Michael Aquino is a avowed occultist, Satanist who started out at the Church of Satan with
yeah,
Anton LaVey, and then
which
later
wasn't
broke
Satan
off.
Oh, you
enough
mean
for him.
yeah,
Anton Levy, I mean,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
sorry.
fantastic.
But yeah, but he broke off and started another splinter group called Temple of Set, and that's a whole other thing because he's very heavily implicated in the Franklin scandal, if you're familiar with that at all.
He
Um,
has some frightening overlap parallels between Crowley. Just the way the saga of their lives, not to reuse that dumb word, but the
I think he would like
just
that.
the yeah, they would, which I hate.
Yeah,
Just the sequence of events and the influence that they carry well after their deaths. Just the rumors of hurting children, but never any
evidence. Yeah,
the revelation of some sort of satanic entity in some sort of altered state, which inspires some automatic writing. Another thing between the two of them.
true.
So these guys suck.
Yeah, fuck
And
them.
unfortunately, no, these are veterans. No,
There's
well,
an
one of
article,
them.
by the way, your audience should read called "The Anton LaVey Early Life Cover Up." It's
Right.
Perfect.
on Substack. It's
I
borzoi.substack.com.
was gonna ask, is that a Borzoi paper?
You know it, yeah.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. For sure. And then also, by the way, if we were talking about just LSD in general, by the way, Zandos AG is a Swiss pharmaceutical company owned by SG Warburg and Company. I don't know if you know who the Warburgs are, but Paul Warburg is the father of the owner of SG Warburg. Paul Warburg being the guy who was the author of the Federal Reserve Act. And is also married into the Rothschilds, incidentally.
Very well.
So
Good for
it's
him.
all fucking the same shit, dude. And then the fact that they're trying to brainwash Palestinians into being like,
Incestuous. It's yeah.
Um, while we're in somewhere within shouting distance of Kaczynski, still, if I can recommend a documentary to you, Marcel,
Das
maybe
Netz.
Das Netz, baby, The Net. You can find it on YouTube. I think it's like 2 hours even. Uh, Danish, Swedish,
It's German.
one of those wanky languages. Yeah, it's fantastic. It really does a great job of chronicling the progress of, basic computers onto, the nexus of the 60s bohemian
Again, the name of the
counterculture
thing it
and
is.
Das Netz,
yeah,
like
uh,
DASNETZ. It's on YouTube.
and yeah, it's
I think his name, the
definitely worth
director's
your
name is like
time.
Lutz
Manfred
Dambeck.
Perzer, I see. No.
Lutz Dambeck is the name of the director, I believe.
And for anyone
Mm,
listening, this is worth your time as well. Do check it out, Das
We've
okay, got
Netz.
it.
absolutely talked about this.
We have new
Um,
listeners, Scott.
you're right. You're right. We do have new listeners every week.
When I was
But yeah,
writing this article and I was talking about it in Twitter space, there's a guy who brought up like this this Catholic society that I just wasn't aware of that was also big into all these sorts of causes. But I'm like blanking on it, and I'm trying not to get like too distracted searching through my
Sorry, no,
fair enough.
my messages.
Well, it's worth noting here that, and I think you definitely hit on this in the article, by the way, but Rick Perry, sort of walked back Rick Perry being an infamous like neocon
Yeah,
doofus presidential candidate, from my youth, and he has like had a sort of come to Krishna moment where he's decided that it's actually cool to take magic mushrooms if you support the troops. Um, and it's very funny because I think it's worth mentioning here that a lot of this sort of softening on drug policy rhetoric is probably a direct result of a group known as the Drug Policy Association, DPA, I think. But it is an organization that's
Council for
wholesale.
National.
No, it's
Uh,
called DPA, I believe. But either way, it's a George Soros backed organization, and he spent a lot of billions of dollars to sort of make weed seem less threatening to like boomers. Um, and I think it's worked. Yeah, like my mom has like
Policy Alliance.
went from being like a I'm an AA lady to being like, oh yeah, I smoke weed now because it's legal. And another thing is, oh, I have to talk about this. It must not be understated the level of sort of cultural change that could be like sort of attributed to the Joe Rogan acceptance of like drugs in general broadly, but definitely pointedly the psychedelics. Now, I'm not going to name this person, and there's actually a non-zero chance he will hear this episode, so I definitely don't want to make this seem like sort of what's the word, sort of like scolding or anything for sure. But this is just something I've noticed. I have like a very old friend who I would have I would say as far back as maybe like 2017, 18, I would describe as like a total square in terms of like drug use and like kind of guy who like just drinks like light beers kind of guy. And throughout the years since then, went from going like once weed got legalized in Massachusetts, where we're from, that was like a go for that person to like try weed for the first time. And then in the years hence, through listening to like Joe Rogan, is now like a casual like psychedelics like mushroom user. And again, I don't want to like say that I haven't tried this stuff before, or like sort of necessarily tut at anyone who does. But my point being is that I definitely noticed that there's like a major cultural shift happening, that like when I tried these things as a young person, it was like really culturally pretty edgy to do. And I'm not trying to seem like a hipster either, mind you. I'm just mean like
There were
uh
consequences.
there was certainly
People,
consequences,
yeah.
but first of all, there was just like not like cultural sort of like acceptance to it. Like if I said something to someone at work, they'd be like, "Oh, are you okay? Like, did you have someone watching you the whole time?" That kind of thing. What if I wouldn't think to say anything at work. That's my point.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
nowadays, it's like totally normal to tell your coworkers, like, "Hey, me and my friends, we got some mushroom chocolates, and
It's
we had
very
it on a
weird. I've seen
barbecue this
people in my
weekend."
life that I had a friend of mine who I met him part of an I don't want to say a Christian apologetics organization when I was in college, and I'm not Christian, but I used I used to be friends with him, and he was like an Afghan vet, and I mean he was as like straight laced Christian as you could possibly
Sure.
be. He graduates, he moves across the country, gets married, and one day he messages me like talking about psychedelics. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like I'm
Yeah.
looking at him and I'm like, why are you? Because when I think of like veterans who like self-medicate with psychedelics, I think of like Adam Kokesh. I mean, talk about that though from the past.
Yeah.
But Adam Kokesh, was never in his life a fundamentalist Christian. Yeah, in fact, quite the opposite.
Yeah.
But this person I'm
I
talking
was
to,
waiting for
he
that shoe to
was,
drop.
and so when he was talking about this, I'm like, what? And unfortunately, he is no longer with us at a very early age, and I assume self-inflicted. But all I'm thinking every time I think about him, I miss him, and I just think like, how did you get into psychedelic drugs? Like, how did that
It's got to
exactly?
be Joe Rogan, right?
Maybe this was years ago.
No.
This was like right before COVID, or right before, or like in the beginnings of COVID.
Okay.
This has been a long time running, though.
Yeah, this op has been going for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's kids born from from the 70s to the aughts who only felt the afterglow of the 60s psychedelia culture, and that's all they needed. Their parents were probably hippies, or they grew up listening to the music, and they uh, saw no issue, have no greater understanding of the wider cultural implications of what that meant for America. But that's you don't even need Rogan for the most part. But
True.
Rogan now has legitimized it to a degree that,
It's shocking.
yeah, it really, um, I don't know what to do with it other than it's funny you mentioned Marcel in one article that the first episode you actually sat down and watched of Rogan was him talking to Ron White about an ayahuasca trip.
Did I watch that
Comedian
whole
Ron
thing?
White.
Oh
I,
man,
I'm well. It's a good thing that you can compartmentalize and hopefully delete that
Hopefully you
memory.
forgot that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, if that's
I gotta go look at the
possible.
article on Rogan and see if I actually
I believe it was in the fifth article. But either way, it's funny that was because I grew up
I have him talking to
watching.
Alex Jones, and I have him talking to. Yeah, that's the only one I remember.
Uh,
Oh,
Well, speaking of Joe
oh,
Rogan,
no, 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 no. Okay, yes, I see this one. Yes, talking to
Black.
Ron White. I do. Okay, I take it
That's
back. I
crazy.
did compartmentalize the memory as soon as I saw his
good.
I'm
face.
sorry I brought it back. I
Yeah,
was trying
there
to
it
keep you
is.
from it.
Yes. Uh,
Shit, man.
this was the first half talking about his life-changing ayahuasca retreat. Yes, indeed. Okay, I do remember
It,
this.
and it's amazing how many people will, I grew up watching, what was that?
Blue Collar Comedy Tour. Yeah, of course.
Amen, brother. Yeah, so you might be a redneck if you ingest mind altering
Yeah.
you might be a redneck if you fizzle your brain out on government grade
If
LSD
you
And
have
it would
25.
be
ego
one thing
death
if
and
these
you
were people that abuse
contemplate your
E.
life, you might
Like
be
if
a
these are just
redneck.
people taking ecstasy, right? I might be again. You almost might write it off, right? If it's like if these were a bunch of, watch my words here, but if these were people from one stoplight towns in, Western Pennsylvania or something, and that was
Sure.
like
That's
the
people.
subculture, and like they just became dominant on the right, and they're like, oh yeah, and doing ecstasy is cool. I'm like, okay, so you think ecstasy is cool because you come from a town in which there's no entertainment for 500 miles, so I can see why
Right.
you think that. But ecstasy is not cool. But this is not that kind of cultural preference being imposed. It's you know
Mm,
ayahuasca, whatever. There was
mm.
this one celebrity. I've already, I gotta check the article. Who was on, Jesus Christ, was it Conan O'Brien talking about how like it was Megan Fox talking about how
Yeah.
she
The
did
drinking the
ayahuasca.
blood, yes.
Yes, she's drinking blood unless she went to hell for eternity and then she woke up again. I'm like, what?
Uh,
Everyone just treats that as totally normal. It was almost as jarring as the time that Ellen was talking to that lady and she was like doing skin cream made of Korean foreskins. It's up
Sandra
there. It's like
Bullock.
we're just gonna pretend this is normal. Actually, Ellen DeGeneres like a clearinghouse for like weird shit. Because remember that
Yep.
time she had the
The
security
security guard
from
from
the
the
Vegas shooting.
yeah. That guy, and then he disappeared after.
And
Wait,
then he
who
just, all
what?
right.
Who was her security guard for the
This
folks
no,
at
the
home?
security guard from the Vegas shooting,
Uh-huh.
uh,
I,
from the Stephen Paddock air quotes shooting.
yeah.
He was the last, the only media appearance that this guy did. He
Oh
was the guy who
yes.
supposedly had what's the word, found the body of Stephen Paddock. He did one media appearance on Ellen and then just disappeared off the
And
face of the earth, never to be heard from again.
yeah, he sat, did the interview and sitting in the chair like this, did not move or breathe for the whole 5 minutes, and then that was the last breath. And who knows where he is now? God love him. That's very strange how many, I mean, Diggy being on Ellen, being
Yeah, well, she's sitting with
the way
fucking
Diggy do.
George W. Bush.
Yeah, it's very funny. She runs her own rehab clinic for the especially uh malevolent, you know.
But you have
But
Joe
yeah,
Rogan
I'll
sitting
never
with
forget
Bruce
that Bullock thing.
Damer. Bruce Damer, these people who are like setting or like high level DOD people who are talking about like, hey Joe, we got to go to Burning Man and you'll really understand what we're all about, man.
Have you guys heard Leather Apron Club?
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
Leather Apron Club has
He has the early life app that's out now.
yes, he does great work on just how much all of these podcasts glow. Actually, they echo really. They echo and they glow.
Yeah,
It's double
both.
duty.
Yeah,
Shout out Leather Apron Club.
And you guys should check this. Your audience should really look into Leather Apron Club on YouTube. He talks about he actually I think I use Leather Apron Club's lit like his whatever overrepresentation march or whatever the fuck he called it. Like
Mhm.
a month he did just every week. And that was like my baseline. It's like, and I'll bet you every single one of these podcasts, Leather Apron Club names, I'll bet you they're all going for psychedelics, and they did. I was slammed.
You should have done the drinking game where
no, you'd
every
be drunk
single
in a
one,
second.
yeah, it
I'll
would
be
have taken
done.
you an extra
I
3
remember when I
days.
was writing this article series, I was at a Ron Paul event. Ron Paul has his anti-war conferences in DC, and I don't know who I was sitting with, but it was really interesting talking to somebody in real life and laying this out to them how they like. I can't say the person was being dense on purpose to try to, I don't know what you're trying, but he just didn't want to believe it. Where I was like, yeah, everybody's pushing psychedelics, and he's like, what do you mean? He's like, everybody in the right pushing psychedelics. Like who? And I just started going down the list. I was like, well, there's Dan Crenshaw, there's Rick Perry, there's Rebecca Mercer, who plays the Tucker Carlson show, there's Yarvin, there's Costin, there's Jack Posobiec, not Jack Posobiec,
Gavin McInnes.
Gavin McGinnis, Michael Cernovich, maybe
Oh
Jack
yeah.
Posobiec too. I don't know.
You need a third person to have enough hands to keep counting the amount
And
of
I just kept
people.
going through. It's like, and so you think it's a conspiracy? It's like, okay, I'll stop you right there. Like,
Dave
I've just
Smith.
listed off like 20 fucking people from across the realm of respectable right-wing politics that are all convincing their audiences to use MDMA, and your like first priority is getting me to preemptively disavow the possibility there's a coordination mechanism at play. What's going on there? Like this
Sounds
person,
anti-Semitic,
Mhm.
Marcel.
I know you could tell that person instantly knew somehow where it was
Yeah.
going just from the list of people. It's like, oh, okay, I know where all these guys work for.
Yeah.
Why are uh,
And I did my best in the article series to give like, moment to moment, because when it comes to conspiratorial thinking, you always got to make sure everybody has the easiest way to test it is just ask yourself like, most people are not good at, this is a standard
pattern
objection to
recognition.
conspiracy theories, right? They're not good at working in teams. They're not good at delaying gratification. So you always got to ask, like, what is the moment to moment payoff? And I did my best to keep it within the realm in the first 4 parts of like, this guy has direct investments in pharmaceutical firms. This guy, like the Mercer Family Foundation, they own things that sell things to the DoD. If nothing else, right? You can read the first 4 parts of the article series, and I did my absolute ever best to just say, here's what this is, here's who this guy is invested in. Here's how there's a government contract involved. Here's like the regulatory, just the normal public choice explanations. And then only in part 5, I'm like, oh, and by the way, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies is like bankrolling all these lobbyists, and they got a guy that's like attached to Rick Perry and da 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 da. So that was when I did that. But moment to moment, it's easily demonstrable that there is a unified interest.
Yeah, thank you. That put me on something actually important. And you'll definitely be familiar with this. I assume you've listened to Rothbard's lecture series, The End of Laissez-Faire. Where he discusses the sort of like economic history of the United States, 1860 to 1940. And in it, he describes the creation of the American Medical Institution by the Rockefellers. And it was in tandem, and this is why I thought of this, is because you wrote about this in the article, is that heroin was developed in order to get people off of opium. And in America, the people who got the patent for heroin was the Rockefellers. And in short order after that, they funded, and by the way, if you just
medical standardization, and then all the doctors are prescribing heroin.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you just Google who started the American Medical Association, boom, pops right up. John D. Rockefeller is the founder and creator of the American Medical Association. And yeah, they standardized, and Rothbard talks great about this, by the way. But they standardized medical practices, and then made it so all of the things that they have patents in order to profit off of got become like standard medical like things that a doctor. And then if you're a doctor in that time period and you're not prescribing those things, you won't get approved by the American Medical Association, and you'll be horned out of the industry. Now, fast forward to today. What's going on? People like Peter Thiel are utilizing, and by the way, also, I just got to mention here, MAPS was started with a grant from the Lawrence Rockefeller Foundation and the David Rockefeller Foundation. So they're just doing the same shit again, first of all. And second of all, you got new Johnny-come-latelys here. The tech people like Peter Thiel also getting his foot in the door, his nose in the door. And the same thing. They're just setting the stage for when this inevitably does become a legal and regulated thing. They will now be able to be the people who are the first ones to cash in on this investment.
Well, literally, it's like that meme where it's like, oh man, they poison us, then they ban their cure. Oh, no, what is it?
our medicine, yeah,
they ban our medicine, and it's they're pushing heroin. And what's so annoying about it is how people are really good at compartmentalizing the past. So it's like, you describe a straightforward story as like, here's a case of like not even people talk about conspiracy theories. It's not a conspiracy theory if it's like one court. A family is not a conspiracy, right? People that are blood related to each other. That it's like, how do you get 2 parents and like their blood heirs to agree to form a course of action? Like the bonds of family loyalty, shared value. What are you talking about? So you're saying everybody on this board of directors of the same corporation all work together to make money? Yes. What? It's a corporation is inherently, what are we even saying? It's a collusive firm. Ben Shapiro, God bless his heart, was like, oh yeah, every corporation is an island of socialism. And, he's right in more ways than I think he intended. But in the same way, it's like, this is a corporation with a direct financial stake in a negative social policy. And everybody can see this in the past. And they're like, but that has no relevance to today. It's like, I'm sorry, was there some spate of like, what do we even say? I don't know what people imagine in their minds. Like,
But Joe Rogan does it. It's cool.
Yeah, the year I was born, Congress passed the like Ban Corruption Forever Act. And it made it so that, all those weird things happened in the 60s. Like, was there some congressional committee, that investigated all this? When War is a Racket by Smedley Butler came out, and they had that congressional inquiry on war profiteering in like 1922. It's like, and as soon as that congressional committee happened, war profiteering in America was destroyed forever, right? All you need is just one book about it. Everybody knows, like, did you know arms merchants profit off the First World War? And then just like that, no more arms merchants for the rest of time forever.
Yeah. And no more like police actions in order to help corporations. Yeah, the late 1940s or early 1950s called, and they want their fucking bullshit back.
I mean, it's like cognitive HIV, right?
Yeah,
Where I'm a erythrocyte, like I'm like a white blood cell, and I've like attuned in, I've grabbed on by reading a history book of like a publicly available information. I've like grabbed onto this disease and I recognize the outward indicators of it. And so every once in a while, I'll see like the same op being run. I'll be like, hey, as a white blood cell, as a helper T cell, I'm letting you know that I recognize the chemical receptors on that cell. That guy is trying to push poison as public policy. And everybody's like, no, that was a disease we had in the past. We don't get those anymore. Yeah, we don't get them anymore because I'm telling you about it, right?
Yeah.
Like, imagine if
you don't listen.
Yeah, right. Like if a human body display this pathology, like you get a disease once, and then
it is the same thing as AIDS.
Yeah, it alerts to the pathogen, and it's like, hey, that's a pathogen from before. It's the same one. And imagine if in some vague sense, like Osmosis Jones or something, the body was like, we've already recovered from that disease. We're immune to it. It's like,
right.
The thing that makes us immune to it is me telling you to destroy it on site. Okay, right. We don't get sick anymore. It's like, no. We already got it before. We don't need to destroy it. Like,
yeah, no, it's true.
It's AIDS. It is cognitive AIDS.
Cognitive AIDS, yeah.
AIDS.
A couple of other things I wanted to hit is specifically but yeah, Joe Rogan and then Aubrey Marcus, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, do you want to talk about Sirhan and
okay, I actually wanted to. I want to push back a little bit on the Sirhan thing. Actually, right. Crazy. So guy so crazy they named him twice. But what's it called? So I don't know if you knew this, but Sirhan had over $10,000 in gambling debt at the time that he committed that murder. Supposedly, I also don't think he committed the murder. By the way.
Okay, so we're in agreement on there.
Yeah, we're in agreement, total agreement. But I don't think they MK Ultra'd him, honestly. I think they just said, well, he worked. I don't know if you know this, but he worked at a mob owned racetrack, and he was in severe gambling debt, and he had a young family. And I imagine they just said, hey, you better show up and have a gun in your hand and this piece of paper in your pocket, or we're gonna kill your family. And he said, okay.
Yeah, good deal. I'll take that
That's
deal.
Possible.
He was a Rosicrucian too.
He was a Rosicrucian, yes, which is weird.
Yeah. And I guess so to get everybody up to speed again. I don't really know what your audience.
We have several episodes on RFK assassination.
Okay, yeah. So just on the off chance, yes. For those,
go listen to those episodes. We had Ryan Dawson on one of them.
Oh, okay. If you had Ryan Dawson on, then we're Gucci. So just for those who don't know, it's physically impossible for
it was
Sirhan's gun to have entered Bobby Kennedy's body. There were gunpowder burns on the back of his jacket, which means whoever killed Bobby Kennedy must have been like within 1 foot in the exact opposite direction. So, and there have been people who were shot by Sirhan. Like Sirhan was there on scene and he did fire bullets. There were more bullets found than fit in his gun. Yeah. There are people that did get hit by his bullets that have been shown to his parole hearings every few years, saying it's physically impossible.
Yep.
So okay. And Laurent Guillenot, who great author on the Unz Review, and actually that segues into something else, but he goes into the case for the MK Ultraing of Sirhan.
For sure. Because, I actually have seen that article before. I have seen that. I've seen Laurent's articles before, specifically that one. But according to Ryan Dawson, who we had on the show, and I actually tend to agree with him, is that I don't think he did it, but I also don't. There doesn't need to be an MK Ultra angle, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, it is possible otherwise.
Doesn't have to be,
particularly
active,
given that fucking that little note he had in his diary, air quotes. It was like, I think it might be Corey Hughes actually put me on this actually, but the handwriting, Sirhan's handwriting was not in that diary. Like it was some other person planted.
He was writing all in English, like in Latin alphabet, Arabic words. Like nice. The man was literally an Arab born in Jerusalem. Like I gotta tell you, people who are natively Arab don't write Arab words in the Latin alphabet. It just doesn't happen.
No.
I'm pretty sure the like what we would call like the Latin Arabic thing. Like if you ever watch if you ever see Arabs typing, they'll put in numbers with their typing.
Yeah,
like this is like a pretty recent innovation. I think in the 1980s for Arabs to express in Latin alphabet the some of the parts of their script.
Yeah,
So
sort of like
that did
the
not exist in the
Japanese
1960s. And even if
Romaji.
it did exist, right? The idea that an Arab is writing his personal diary, what is effectively uh, a shorthand that was like a shorthand that only needs to exist to accommodate the Western typewriter. If you're writing by hand, that need does not exist.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
amazing for all of their forethought and you know they miss these details. This is like
But they
Inglorious
don't though.
Bastards
Does
in
it?
the
If you ask
tavern.
any normal normie of who shot him, they'll say Sirhan Sirhan, a guy so crazy they named him twice.
Well,
And yeah,
if I
it
meet
just
somebody
speaks
who
to how
says,
little it matters.
if
What
I find somebody who says Sirhan Sirhan, I get upset because that means that person. Because really, if I ask you who killed Bobby Kennedy, the answer I expect from any true normie is I don't know, right?
Right.
Hmm.
Like if I say
Yeah.
who killed JFK and you say, oh, Lee Harvey Oswald, I'm like, yeah, that's commonly available information. If
Right.
you say Jack Ruby killed JFK, I know that like you're wrong, but that means
Wires
you're,
are
It
you're
gets
crossed.
still
out.
within
Yeah.
the you, but
You've
you're
heard
within the
things.
realm of like as once you know the name Abraham Zapruder, right?
Yeah.
That means like okay, you are now operating on a level of
Yeah. Once you know
information where I'm not
Daltech's building.
yeah yeah like there's certain names where it's like yeah if you know the name Lee Harvey Oswald, I don't know what you know about JFK. If you know the name Jack
Oh,
Ruby,
plenty.
right now you might know. I'm not asking. I'm just like I'm a hypothetical person, right?
Yeah.
A hypothetical person who knows Lee Harvey. I'm like, okay, maybe you just watched TV or you heard in high school. Jack Ruby. Okay, you were paying attention in high school. If you know the Abraham Zapruder, okay, now I'm looking at you. If you know
Yeah.
that name, I'm going to start asking you questions, and if you start giving me wrong answers, I'm starting to get suspicious. Sirhan, on instantly. If I say who killed Bobby Kennedy, you know the name Sirhan. Like this is what got me mad at Steve Saylor. Like if you
You're a
consciously know
Zionist.
his name, right, you know more information than probably 80% of people on it. And now it is like incumbent on you to be aware of the simple fact that
Yeah.
it's physically impossible for the bullets from his gun to have entered his body. The
Yeah.
only other case where it was so straightforward was I think I gave the example the Huey Long shooting, where there were
Speaking of which, who shot to pull the trigger on that guy?
yeah, like there are
Supposedly.
2 bullets in Huey Long's
Every
body,
man a
and the
king.
guy was only witness firing one shot, and his bodyguards fired like a hail of 68. I'm even willing to kick it to it being an accident by the bodyguards, but if you can put it together that if the assassin fired one
Yeah.
shot and there's 2 bullets in his body, at least one of those bullets must have come from somebody else. In the case of
Several
Bobby,
eyewitnesses, by the way, of that shooting say that the Jewish guy,
punched him.
doctor, punched him. Yeah, exactly. He
Yeah.
didn't actually shoot him. But what I was going to say, so another incident, Maps, by the way, has had guest speakers at their events, including this guy Robert Anton Wilson. Are you familiar with this guy? Robert Anton Wilson. I didn't know about him till today. Well, I'd heard of him, but so he's this guy, and I
You know his
don't.
work.
Yeah, I'm
You've
familiar
heard
with
his
this guy.
stuff. Yeah.
But
Truly,
regardless,
we all have in a
yeah,
way. The
actually,
same
we
way
have.
we all have experienced the work of Carrie Thornley
Right.
in its own warped way.
But yeah,
Um,
so Robert Anton Wilson is this guy who was Maps adjacent for the record, and he's also probably best known as being the founder of Discordianism. Now, Discordianism is a fake religion that was co-created between this guy. Robert Anton Wilson and the other guy he was co-created with is a guy named Kerry Thornley. Kerry Thornley is probably best known in broader culture for having penned a book called what is it called, Patrick? The something warriors, whatever. He wrote a book in before Lee Harvey Oswald supposedly shot JFK. He wrote a novel about Lee Harvey Oswald.
Hmm.
And so if you do your homework on him, it turns out he's actually a CIA contract
the
agent.
Idle Warriors.
The Idle Warriors. Yeah, so check that
Yeah.
out. But Kerry Thornley,
Well,
author of The Idle Warriors, co-creator of Discordianism, was actually a person of interest in the JFK assassination, and due to the diligent work of Corey Hughes, primarily in his book A Warning from History, which I've read several times, and I've had the pleasure of talking to him several times on the show.
shout out Corey
He
Hughes.
has pretty much determined that one of the people are several of the people who people have believed to be Lee Harvey Oswald in certain eyewitness incidents was actually Kerry Thornley in disguise as Lee
Surprise,
Harvey Oswald.
motherfucker.
Yeah, he was
How
also
very Discordian of
it was
him.
very Discordian, and he
Yeah.
also was in Lee Harvey Oswald's Marine platoon. Also, that's probably another mentionable thing. But so that's a pretty fucking crazy coinky dink that the maps people are getting lectured to by a co-creator of a religion with a guy who's involved in the JFK assassination.
What's his name? CD Jackson, the guy who bought the Zapruder film, was
Oh,
also.
yeah.
This is exactly. I will go no further on this topic, but he was also the first one in the gates at Buchenwald concentration camp.
Yes,
So
I'm
he was
sure
the
that.
one who gave us the famous footage. He was in the Army Psych War division. He gave us all that footage of the lampshades
Yep.
and the
Henry
riding
Ford was
gloves.
also there, I believe, and also what's the other guy who's in who's the bad guy in Chinatown? John
The,
Huston. Angelica
there was a guy
Houston's
who filmed
father.
some. Billy Wilder, who filmed Some Like It Hot, was also
Yep, they were
uh,
all those filmmakers were there for that shoot.
first in the
Yeah.
gates.
Well, it was in Los Angeles.
No, that's the real.
Sorry.
That's the real one. No, it's like broke faking the moonlight.
Um,
It was all sass.
Marcel, where do you get your ideas?
Oh,
Sorry.
Un's review. I went down the Ron Paul to Ron Un's pipeline. We'll say.
Yeah, we went to the Ron Paul's newsletter pipeline.
Yeah.
Yeah,
God love him.
Ron Paul 2012 to Ron Paul's newsletters to basically just Ron Un's American Pravda articles. That's like I would say everybody, that is I would say when it comes to
Me
Ivy
too,
dipping
by the
myself with
way.
dissident
For the
narratives.
record.
Everybody should
Yeah.
be going to Un's review. And if I'm shilling things, everybody should follow me. Should join my book club. I'm not saying we can keep going. I just figured it's
Oh,
Yeah, no,
no,
get a
I
plug in,
should probably-
please, please.
Yes.
Please.
So my book club is called the Property and Freedom Book Club to
Sick.
evoke Hans Hermann Hoppe's Property and Freedom Society. Although there's no official relation, at least not yet. But who knows? I'll keep wearing that old man down. We're right now reading a book by Jeremy Hammond called Obstacle to Peace. And then we're going to be reading, starting sometime in the summer, Laurent Guillenot's book, actually, From Yahweh to Zion.
Interesting.
So,
I don't.
everybody should join that. I'll send you guys a Discord link so that you can put it in the show notes. But
Sure.
the easiest way to find it as well would be to go to my Twitter, which is Anarchy in Black. My pinned tweet is always a link to my Substack. And then if you go in the top bar of my Substack, you'll see a link to the book club.
Far out.
And that'll
Yeah.
take you to the Discord server.
What's one thing in common with Discord and libertarians?
We're all really mature for our age.
We're all really into gold.
Yeah.
By the way, Discordianism. Find me on
Discord.
Discord. What's
Yeah,
going
right.
on here, brother man? Yeah,
I mean,
it
Discord,
really-
as I recall, Discord is like its founding population, so to speak. We're all like furries. There was a while where if you had like an anti-furry Discord server, like people just noticed that they just tend to get banned more often than anyone else.
Right.
So maybe
And
it wasn't, there's at least one person in like at Discord headquarters that was putting their thumb on the scale on that hard.
what constituted an anti-furry Discord server? One that wasn't
I don't remember. I simply
about anything other than
yeah, anything
furry.
but
Like-
pro
like it-
furry, I would imagine.
like paint swatches. Discord deleted. Yeah. So, if I may say, this bugged the hell out of me. Rick Perry's executive order on Gardasil. This is
Oh yeah, the
you know,
free
for-
HPV vaccine. Yes.
was this
Didn't what's his name? Bobby Kennedy also recently suddenly say he was in favor of like universal HPV vaccination.
I wouldn't be surprised. Fell for it
yeah.
again award.
Yep.
we can't get fooled again. And that jives with what he said previously. He's like, I still believe in vaccines, which is that's the thing. That's how Discordian the world we live in. That he gives us that book about Fauci, which was fantastic.
I mean, it's written by Jews, and he just put his name on it. But whatever.
Yeah,
Rabbi
well,
Shmuley
got the
himself
time.
was up late at night just
Yeah, he was typing it with two dildos.
There's just some small part of me that believes that Rabbi Shmuley is like secretly like, he gets home. It's like a what is it? An episode of The Simpsons where the fat kid gets home from school and he's like a full grown man as like he's
Yeah,
just short undercover. And I feel like Rabbi Shmuley, whenever he gets home with his daughter, like the dildo business is real, but everything else about his personality, it's like or like that Clark Kent Superman where he sort of
yeah,
stands up, like he sort of stands upright and he's like super serious and he's like, all right, darling, we gotta have something ready for the Candace operation. That's like, okay, so what are you gonna do? Okay, so it's gonna be a bit embarrassing, but I think we're gonna need to go on a bridge and start shouting at her and offering a coupon code on the dildos. Daddy, this is humiliating. Why do we need to do this? Like, the tribe requires it. Okay,
yeah.
just looking at it, it's like, Daddy, I want to be normal. Okay, they make fun of me at shul. It's like, shut up. Smacks her in the face.
It's like when British people have to when no one's around and they can stop doing the accent. Yeah, no. That what
Scott,
a weird guy, by the way. Yes.
are we able to hear their real accent, or is it kind of like a tree in the woods, no one's around,
Why
that
are you
type of
asking
thing?
me?
I don't know. I mean,
I live in Massachusetts, I guess.
no, but you've interacted with William enough where,
Oh, British people.
maybe,
Oh, okay, fine.
maybe he walks away from the setup, and you can hear him talking in the other room, and you can hear him going,
No, they're very good. They're good at their
however
work.
they sound.
They're good at keeping it under the real voice undercover. Yeah, and then nobody you wouldn't know it, but they're all birthed out of the Queen.
Well, you
Oh
know that the
yeah,
Virginia accent, like the Virginia
uh,
Tidewater, is the original British accent, and like what we
Yeah,
yeah.
think of as a British accent is relatively new. It's like maybe like 100, 150 years old. But the
Mm.
way that people from sort of mid-Atlantic in America speak is the way like
yeah.
King George III would sound basically indistinguishable from like
Yo, everyone, I'm going down to get some water ice.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's true. And
As if I
the
couldn't respect them less already. That's what they sound like.
was it the after the Glorious Revolution or something that the like the Dutch took over and then William and Mary took over and then they all started having non-rhotic R's, I guess. I've heard that's the turning point. But then also you'll notice that the Boston accent where I'm from they do also have a non-rhotic R, which is indicative of the fact that there was like a lot of intercourse between the UK, particularly the upper classes in England and the New England in the the years after the settlement.
So,
Ringing any bells, Patrick?
oh yeah, no, absolutely. We're all dealing with
Well,
in
I
fact,
consciously
that
dropped any accent I had because I feel like the New England accent is kind of trashy, low key.
yeah, listen.
I have a perfectly normal like Brooklyn, New York accent, and the Brooklyn is like totally faded.
No,
Sure,
I mean,
I wouldn't
it's
known.
it's still there if you need it. You know,
Yeah.
you need to shout somebody down from across the street. Um, but like, if I going back to accents, Rosemary. Oh, hold on, Rosemary Kennedy. They lobotomized her. That poor woman.
Oh yeah, they
Good.
made her sing. What did they make her sing when they were doing it?
Ugh.
Uh,
Uh,
Bury a Little Lamb, maybe. I don't know. That seems like a
No,
Where
I
is
think it was
My
like the
really.
Mind
national
by the
anthem.
Pixies? Sorry, that sucks.
Yeah.
I suck. That's
Oh,
so.
they had her do the Lord's
My country
Prayer and
tis.
God Bless America.
God bless
Oh,
America.
God have mercy on all
When
these
when she
people.
became incoherent, they ceased cutting.
Whew. That is
Yeah,
dark. I
cool.
didn't know that.
Yep.
That's good. At least that
I knew they cut her brains out, but and what was it? Because she was like depressed or something, and it was unbefitting of like
a lady
a guy who hangs
of
out with
bootleg money.
Charles.
She would often experience convulsions, flights of violent rages during which she would hit and injure others. Began sneaking out of the
Demonic
convent
possession.
school at night. Might be involved with sexual partners, and she might contract an STD or get pregnant. Um, or that she would damage political careers. I mean, for that to
Rare.
ship her off somewhere.
right.
Yes. A rare case where a light dose of any drug would be preferable.
They should have given her ketamine. I think
Yeah.
Teddy Roosevelt also had a daughter that was like,
On ketamine?
no, no, but that was like
Scrambled brains.
a walking on like a walking scandal.
Oh,
Like,
is
but the thing is, like, you don't really like she liked to dress like a man, but she like when you're Teddy Roosevelt's daughter, like you can kind of do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah.
she
you
was a
probably
kind
look
of
like him.
yeah.
Ooh. She dressed like a man because it caused
Imagine
less
like
trouble.
imagine Teddy Roosevelt's daughter today, and she's like she wears like flat brim hat and like has a Hispanic girlfriend and shit. Like,
Arm tattoos
Yeah,
aside. Nice.
Alice Roosevelt Longworth or Alice Lee Roosevelt.
I wish her
They
well.
didn't they
she
didn't
wears like one of
lobotomize
those
her.
like necklaces that's like the metal balls that hook into each other and shit. And she's like a
Nice.
bouncer. She like pats women down at the club for a living. You know that style of lesbian.
Well, you know what they say about work, Scott. If you love what you do.
You
You
never
never
work a day in your life. That's true.
Yeah, like if you love destabilizing, entire civilizations, yeah.
Yeah.
that
I know
feel
a
when no
place for
Roosevelt
you.
GF to ruin my life.
Yeah, TFW, no stud, presidential stud GF.
You know,
I wanted to say this is what's it called? Just last night, apparently, thank you to Travis for hipping me to this. But he was someone in his house was watching Jesse Waters last night and on
Jesse
Fox,
Lee
yeah.
Peterson?
no,
No, Jesse.
the Fox News guy.
That would have been more entertaining, yeah. No, what's it called? On Fox, yeah.
Nice.
The Jesse Waters though had Elon Musk on the show, and
Ugh.
Elon Musk was talking about how it was really important that they focus everyone we focus all of our efforts on getting to Mars, and he specifically spoke of it in a sense that it's like expanding human consciousness.
Elon Musk is high
Mm.
constantly. It's actually weird how many times I've seen Elon Musk at the inauguration and other events.
You're
Like
just
when
fucked
Elon
up.
Musk, when you know, when Elon Musk's heart went out to everybody, he was high. You could see when he was with next to Barron earlier that same afternoon, or when he was walking into the event, clearly high. Another person who's constantly intoxicated is what's his name? Pete Hesketh,
Yeah,
whatever his name is.
yeah, yeah,
Clearly an
yeah.
alcoholic, constantly drunk at meetings. There were the number of Trump administration people who I've seen like inebriated is probably more than any other, which is crazy because Trump is like super straight edge.
Yeah.
You know, like all great
Besides
men, Trump is
He's an
Trump
Adderall,
Sudafed.
refuses
bro.
to like yeah, like all great men, Trump refuses to drink or smoke. He's probably a vegetarian who loves dogs, but
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah, he loves Adderall too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, maybe some kind of amphetamine.
But no, that is true. And also, yeah, the fact that they're like all hanging out at the UFC events, like trashed. And it's like, if like just a plane, like a helicopter, like have been happening lately, just went down here. Wouldn't there be like have to be like a major like Congress scramble in order to like confirm all the people that they're gonna replace with these guys if they all croak all at once or whatever? But yeah, no, that Hegseth guy definitely does have a I'm always drunk sort of
Do
vibe,
something about it.
and he definitely got the tattoo in Hebrew when he was trashed.
Oh yeah, the Yeshua, and then yeah, Yeshua in Hebrew, and then under he has like I think he has kafir in Arabic underneath.
What a fucking loser, dude.
Wait, Cathar? Is that
Kafir,
what he-
like infidel, infidel.
Yeah.
Oh, good for him.
It's weird. Kafir means infidel in every language except for in Afrikaans, where it's basically the N word.
Yeah, I
All
did know
right.
that. But no,
No, I know that.
what was I
That's
gonna
not
say though
good.
is but yeah, so I agree with you on the Elon Musk being fucked up all the time, but like then I don't know if you, again we were talking earlier about the Edge Foundation thing. Like Elon Musk went to these Edge Foundation dinners. Edge is hilarious, by the way, because it's associated with Jeffrey Epstein. They're
Non-human
edging. They're obviously
intelligences.
edging. But what was I gonna say? But he went to these Edge dinners, which were funded by Jeffrey Epstein, and it was like a utilizing New Age principle, like Esalen Institute principles, in order to sort of push culture in a direction or whatever. And he was there alongside with Jeff Bezos, Sergey Brin, Alex Karp, and a couple other people. Do you remember who else was there, Patrick? Oh, the Wojcicki sisters were
I was
all
going
in
to say he was married
attendance.
to Wojcicki at the time.
That was Sergey
Um,
Brin, yeah. But yeah, so
Amazing.
all these people who are involved primarily in social media, or in the case of Elon Musk, would later be involved in social media, are literally sitting through an Epstein-funded dinner where they're going through a PowerPoint on how they're going to utilize social media platforms in order to change the mean opinions on certain topics. So it's exactly by the way, this was in as early, this was like 1998 or 9 when these
Mhm.
dinners were
Mhm.
happening too. So this is like a process. This drugs thing has been going on for a long time. And again, this
Mhm.
it has to be mentioned here as oh yeah, Edge Foundation, founded by John Brockman, who I mentioned before. John Brockman, of course, being the guy who was like hanging out with like the Grateful Dead and stuff, and
Mhm.
like Timothy Leary and stuff.
Mhm.
So it's all interconnected, this stuff.
Uh, and Leary, while we're talking about Rockefeller money, I think it was Mellon money
Melon money, yes, the melons,
that was,
yeah.
yeah, the Mellon Mansion.
Yeah, but they all stayed and
Where,
did
yeah,
experiments at the Mellon Mansion in upstate New
yeah,
York, right?
yeah. So
And then the
yeah,
CIA's hatchet men, the fucking the what's the name of the SDS? They are the what do you call it? The yeah, they guess the SDS. They broke Leary out of prison, if you remember. Remember he was in federal
yes.
prison. They broke him out of
Oh,
jail.
they were typically out of prison. Oh, a book on that kind of activity, by the way, is Days of Rage by Brian
Yeah,
Burrow.
we
That
read
just clicked
that.
in my head.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We read that and had an episode on it with Dimes from Blood Satellite. Um, but what's it called? I was gonna say is so yeah, it's all this stuff is it's really a small incestuous little circle. It's very odd.
Um,
And it's kind of frustrating that when you say this to like anybody, they look at you like you're crazy because you're
yeah.
implying that like the Grateful Dead is associated with the CIA, but like the receipts are there, man.
What's his face? Oswald Stanley was the contact for the government LSD because there no one else had LSD um, at the time. Well, now if I can get into this, in Kentucky, and this just rang in my head too because it finally, uh, Hunter S. Thompson, talk about someone who made nonchalant psychedelic use, part of, uh, tried to give that legitimacy within, journalism, or, actually, really, it was more, probably to discredit, uh, other journalists, given how good a lot of his stuff was. Um, and in effect, there really wasn't, no one else did it like that other than him as openly. So, and now that I thought of that because of that Kentucky bill that, what was it, 45 some $1 million towards psilocybin research. No, ibogaine research. And
Ibogaine,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. I did talk about the Ibogaine
yeah,
thing.
and so Kentucky, I swear, Hunter S. Thompson was born in Louisville, Kentucky. Yes, okay, perfect. Air Force kid. What else? But he did a article just I think basically slandering a some guy running. I cannot remember who it was. Basically saying that he was going on ibogaine retreats to get
Ibogaine
clean
causes
off of.
heart attacks. Like it causes cardiac arrest. It's like worse than anything else. Like the worst thing you could take.
So, and it's what's strange is who knew about ibogaine in 1969, 1970.
The CIA.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Hunter S. Thompson.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that he used it to legitimately upend a political candidate's running, I'm going to find it. Uh,
And I just realized,
Sorry, Muskie, Ed Muskie.
Oh, Ed Muskie, yeah.
actually, we
Yeah.
went this far, probably like an hour and a half. I don't think we actually like honed in on the actual thesis of the article series.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
we're
pretty solid. That's pretty
we're
common for
circling.
us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
yeah, I
get
just remember like we've been talking about it. So, show notes,
Don't worry,
130.
the articles will be in the show notes.
Yeah, it's like 110:35. We finally begin discussing the article thesis. Um, I bet I got. I'm willing to bet I'm like within 5 minutes on the timestamp, by the way. But
No, you're 122.
yeah, look at that. So so the general idea is, besides all these people that have a financial stake in just normalizing psychedelic use because they're just going to sell these drugs, it is also a form of depoliticization,
Yes.
especially to the extent that it's being pushed by the Thiel Network people like Yarvin, like Costin,
Yeah.
because it is something that is transgressive, depoliticizing, because one, it sort of sucks your mind into just a private world of nonsense, which makes it hard for you to do collective organization. Costin is very hostile to collective organization. He's always said that all politics need to be done by like 2 to 3 man teams.
I was gonna say 2-man teams. Yeah.
Yeah, and it causes people to so depoliticization. You're more easily blackmailed when you're on drugs.
Yep.
It's harder to more easily blackmailed. You separate from reality, and you begin to, how do I put this? You begin to believe that changing your mind is changing the world.
Yes.
And a lot of what is pushed in the bat space in particular. So when they push, Ernst Junger was like literally the OG. I think he came up with the term psychonaut.
Yeah,
And
he did.
you
Yeah.
see the
dropped
sort
that
of
in the
odd
article.
transgression in that space where they push, I don't even know what to really call this, Derlewanger Zionism. It's the only really way to describe their sphere, where they will push like the most like tangential and amoral specimens in the Third Reich, or in the broader Axis power structure, where they'll take people like Ernst Junger, who spent most of the war just jerking off in Paris, and then think about how based it would be to kill Hitler and then create like a warrior aristocracy like him.
Yeah.
You had Julius Evola, who wandered
He
around
did
calling
that
himself
on
like a super fascist and meditating on like riding the tiger and like spiritual whateverism. You have someone like again Oscar Derlewanger, like a literal
Yeah.
pedophile
He rapes
who
people.
molested members of the Hitler Youth and then went around like torching Belarusian villages. And they really do like this idea of like letting people partake in Axis power aesthetics. Again, Spanish fascists, Italian
Yeah.
super fascists,
Yep.
German like monarchists.
What's his name? Fucking Pinochet. Pinochet, by the way, who oversaw MK Ultra
Sucks.
research in his own fucking country on his
I'm a
supposed.
libertarian. Don't talk about Pinochet, okay?
No,
That's
fuck
my
him.
thing. That's my personal, okay? That's not the same, okay?
He shook hands with fucking Kissinger. He can
I know.
Kissinger my ass.
I remember the
Hey.
Pinochet meme days with the helicopters and stuff. And so you see them doing this, but at the same time, they really get mad at you if you do like World War II revisionism,
Yep.
if you do like 9/11 revisionism.
Yep.
So it's like, listen, you guys can partake in aesthetic appreciation for the Axis powers as long as you don't like affirmatively like them. You should only like the ones who are the most individualistic,
Yeah.
the most nihilistic, frankly, the most overtly, literally criminal and repulsive.
Yeah.
And the pushing of drugs is like yet another way to make yourself repulsive, unlikable, unorganizable. And if you refuse to do that, if you're like, I'm going to be straight edge and I'm going to apply the lessons of like the Iraq war forwards and backwards, right?
Sure.
So I'm going to see how America, gay up Saddam Hussein, and I'm going to apply that analysis to what is going on in with the Maidan in Ukraine. And you're like, oh, that's like low IQ, that's cringe, that's peasant, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to work that backwards actually on how that applies to our conduct vis-a-vis Germany or Japan. And it's like, that's super cringe.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not supposed to actually engage in like a moralistic re-examination of World War II. If you want to question World War II, it's fine as long as you make sure to do it from the perspective of like a literal criminal.
Yes.
Right? Like you can identify, if you're going to identify with anybody in the SS, make sure it's the pedophile rapist
Yeah.
who like the only division to suffer like a greater than 100% attrition rate. So when the Warsaw Uprising happened, they sent in the Derlewanger Brigade, who had spent the past 4 years of the war, just massacring Belarusian villages,
Right.
immediately on contact with anybody that actually shot back at them. They lost all their numbers, were replenished with more criminals, and lost more. So they had a
Wow.
greater than 100% attrition rate. So this pushing of psychedelics is in that train of really seemingly just intentionally sabotaging people's ability to think collectively, to reason ethically, to reason morally. This entire Yarvin sphere, Kosten sphere, is really hostile to the idea of universal morality. I know I'm like almost sounding like very Catholic right now, but it does annoy the hell out of me whenever I see these people engaging in this behavior where they're like, if you are applying like an objective moral standard, even if it's just like the Kantian categorical imperative, if you are actually
that's
engaging,
cringe. You're supposed to be Nietzschean. You're supposed to be Nietzschean based.
Do drugs. It's like, wow, man, you are my greatest ally. Thank you for the drugs.
Yeah, no, it's true. I really, and you see them actually tactically deploy Nietzschean stuff and go like, "Oh, I have master morality. What are you like, a woman caring about Palestinians? Ugh, so embarrassing. Ugh, such cringe that you care about genocide. What are you, a fucking chick?"
The most
Come out of the
absurd one I
shadows and
saw
say that.
was when Luigi, whatever his name, Luigi Mangione, when he shot that health. So to be clear, I think it was wrong for him to do that.
Sure. I don't think he did it. How about that?
Sure, whatever. Like,
How
I
do
think
you
it was wrong
like
to
them
do it.
apples?
But what it is, no matter what, it is true that one, it is a like just as killing the czar is a revolutionary act, but I think it's wrong, right? Killing a CEO is a revolutionary act, and I happen to think it's wrong. And everybody was like, no, it's not a revolutionary act. It's actually like a resentful peasant slave chimp out. Like, what are you guys even talking about? And what was staggering was like everybody who heard that he shot the healthcare CEO, they immediately everybody in America immediately pattern matched why he probably did that. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, why did you think that? Like, I'll bet you. Everybody knew instantly. It's like,
I wrote a
bet his mom
Substack
had health
article about it,
insurance,
actually.
and then she was denied a claim and she died. Everybody instantly, and they were like, yeah, no, it's a peasant ship out. Stop thinking about this. And there was a guy, he's on Twitter as Alaric the Barbarian, talking about like, he wasn't being like a great man or whatever. He was just pecuniary resentment. Like, excuse me, you are named after a literal German barbarian who sacked like the capital of the Roman Empire because they wouldn't pay him his mercenary fees. What are you talking about? And they're like, but at least Alaric accomplished something. He did something for his people. It's like, okay, but you also published books by Yukio Mishima, a man whose crowning achievement was like shouting poetry at a bunch of Japanese soldiers who laughed at him, and then he disemboweled himself.
Don't talk shit about Mishima on this show, bro.
You know what I'm saying? They, all these people that effectively their lives came to naught. Pyotr Wrangel also effectively. I mean, if we're just going to be like that, the USSR continued to exist. All of his people were just shipped back into Russia after World War II by Churchill. This idea is like, well, it only matters if you win. It's like, okay, so if it's okay to lionize Mishima, like Yahya Sinwar, he also died better than Mishima did. Surely you should be lionizing him. No, because he didn't write a. So actually Yahya Sinwar did write a book. He actually did write a book about basically choking collaborators to death. So can I expect to see that published on I don't know what, passive or press or whatever the fuck they work for?
Yeah. Whatever thing based in Tel Aviv, whatever imprint based in Tel Aviv, they ship books out of on Wix.com.
Yeah. It's all like nihilistic stuff. That entire scene is just, it's just filled with.
Yeah, you also went into the Atomwaffen thing, which, by the way, I always shout out Eric Stryker's article on the.
That was another major inspiration, actually.
Yeah,
that article
the
Atomwaffen
on thing, which got me into a whole rabbit hole too, because then it goes way more than that. So I found out through that put me onto it. But the Atomwaffen shit is all downstream from this guy. I can't fucking remember his name right now, but it's Anton LaVey's daughter's ex-boyfriend,
Nicholas Schreck.
Nicholas Schreck. Thank you, Patrick. Nicholas Schreck is a former neo-Nazi goth vampire, I guess you would call it.
Sorry.
And it's like the predecessor to Atomwaffen, essentially. And I found a video of him on YouTube being interviewed by Tom Metzger, interestingly. But if you're familiar with Tom Metzger,
the name does look strong. Obviously a neo-Nazi. I remember this, but I don't remember. Wasn't he A. Wyatt Mann in the end?
No. That's Nick Bugas. But what's it called? White Aryan Resistance, WAR
Yes, okay.
was Tom Metzger. But he had a TV show called Race and Reason in the 1990s and or 80s and 90s, and he interviewed this Nicholas Schreck guy. And Nicholas Schreck's talking about how it's Satanist to be a Nazi and blah 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 blah. And you can see where I'm going with this with Atomwaffen, and eventually sort of evolved out of this. But I didn't know this at the time, but he was hooked up with Anton LaVey's daughter. They're married for many years. Now, I want to be careful slightly about saying what Nicholas Schreck is now because I understand he's fairly litigious. Um, uh, so that's the thing. So he's litigious about what you call him. But I mean, he's sitting there with Tom Metzger. I don't know what else to say with that, buddy.
Oh, like he gets mad if you were to call him a Nazi. And he's
Yeah,
like, how
supposedly.
dare
Yeah.
you? Yeah.
Yeah. But regardless, this put me on a whole new thing, and I'm like, so Anton LaVey, I realized after I found out that Nicholas Schreck was dating Zena LaVey, I've realized that guess who interviewed Zena LaVey? Jordan
Oprah.
Peterson interviewed Zena
Yeah.
LaVey and did basically a
Make it stop, dude. Make it stop.
Rabbi Peterson
No.
sat down with Zena LaVey, and in this video, I watched this interview with her. I couldn't believe my fucking ears. She said, a lot of people think of my dad, Anton LaVey, as being like this hippy dippy sort of edgy out there guy. But I'm here to tell you, all of the people who are in the Church of Satan were law enforcement, Pentagon people, and major people who worked in corporations and shit. And I'm like, yes, she's saying it.
Yeah, and
Why
the
is
Joshua
she
Caleb
saying
Souter
it?
thing, that one. So so you read the Stryker article. It's on
course.
UNS also. That's why. Joshua Caleb Souter wrote at length about how he was basically just farming
Yeah.
convictions for the FBI. So for those who don't know, he was part of the
Temple of Blood.
but before that, the Church of Yahweh or something like that. Like it was
It was
sort
it
of
was
like
an
Christian
offshoot
identity
of
thing.
Aryan Nations, which
Yeah,
is
an Aryan Nation offshoot.
Christian identity shit, where they think that white people are the real temple.
Yeah, they're British
the
of the
real,
Lost Tribe of Israel.
exactly. Yeah,
If you want, and anyone wants to wean themselves off of that crap, go again, read Guillermo's book, and you'll see why that's nothing to be proud of. But,
Well, sorry, while we're on the topic, real quick, the author of The Powers and Principalities, Leary, Christian nationalist, right?
Yeah, but that's like some young guy.
Self-identifying.
Declan Leary. I looked him on Twitter, and I looked at this like, okay, I think this is just a weird. I know that's like a sudden like bout of like blue pillory to give people the benefit of the doubt here, but I was like scrolling through. I'm like, okay, this kid's like 19 or 20. I think that he's
just lost.
I'm sure it's plenty innocuous, but it just how casual it is speaks to this totally improper intertwining of two things.
Yeah, it's gotten into the space.
Yeah, we're in oxymoron land.
But Jacob Caleb Souter is this guy he got caught with an illegal gun in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, and then from there he was trying to convince the Aryan nations to rob banks. Then he went from that to like a Songun study group, which is like a North Korea thing, and then he got into Atomwaffen. Oh no, he got into Temple of Blood, and then from there Atomwaffen, and the entire like siege network is like super linked up with the Order of Nine Angles. There's a Twitter user named Agnonsis who has also done a lot of good stuff on like O9A and just their various front groups. There was this recent case of like a black Nazi mass shooter. I don't know how long ago it was, but he was affiliated with the Temple of Bob, and it was like all the same imagery. And they're really into like, again, Oscar Derlowanger is like their favorite person. Who I just want to emphasize this for everybody. For those who don't know, Oscar Derlowanger was a World War I veteran who got done for sex crimes. He was put into, I think, Sachsenhausen, and then he like wrote enough letters that he was let back out, and they put him in charge of a penal battalion. Or it was like there's a penal battalion. They didn't like a penal division,
right?
And at first, he started recruiting just from like poachers, and then poachers expanded to like rapists and murderers, and then I mean, it was really like diversity is our strength hours because it was like gypsies and communists and homosexuals. Eventually, he started having his pick of the concentration camps. So if you have like a so-called neo-Nazi movement, which is lionizing again, like somebody who rapes members of the Hitler Youth, I do wonder how he thought that was going to work out for him. I mean, clearly it worked out great because they sicked him on the people of Belarus, which is.
I
I'll
thought you
just
meant
never forgive
Jacob
them.
Caleb Souter. I think how much he was getting, like at least $40,000 check a year from the Department of Justice, if I'm not mistaken, right?
And he got paid per arrest, and he would get people on drugs. Speaking of, you mentioned Burning Man before. He took people to what was called the Nuclear Congress, where
Yeah,
he would like pay for like 17-year-olds to go to this, or the FBI would pay for it,
right.
and he would like parcel them out to different groups, get them on drugs, and then get them to like vandalize synagogues like old reliable apparently. Like if you really
Yeah.
want to just get a 17-year-old, like if you want in and out of them, right? If you don't have anything fancy for them, like hey, go spray paint a swastika on the synagogue. It's
Hey,
like hey Joshua, what you doing? Right?
I was gonna say
Put
sometimes
them
they
in.
the synagogues vandalize themselves.
Mm.
Yeah, 80%
Put a kid
of
in
synagogue
public school.
vandalisms are done by like, yeah.
Put a kid in public school for 8 hours a day for however many years, and he'll just start scribbling them into anything. Yeah, swastikas.
So yeah,
Notepads
no,
and
I,
so
I
on.
agree. And so yeah, that, and by the way, wasn't one of the people who came out of this this, oh yes, by the way, this was all exposed. And thank you again for Eric Stryker for writing this excellent write up for this. But it was exposed in a court discovery, if I'm not mistaken. One of the
Yep.
people that he had sort of set up to fall so he could get this money from the Department of Justice for the arrests. Had his lawyer subpoena information related to Sutter having been an informant, and yes, it became public knowledge, and it blew the entire op. And another, it was revealed too that there was that infamous Adam Waffen music video. The music video itself was paid for with a check the carbon copy has been found that was cut by the Department of Justice.
Yeah. And and so when Suter writes about bringing out people's sinister side by having them do drugs, you know, I mean, you can take them two ways. First of all, it's just simply intuitive that, emotional abuse
Right.
plus psychedelic drugs, and then just any amount of like basic persuasion by someone who knows how to manipulate people can get people to do things.
Yeah.
Or he just literally, just read the MK Ultra books or files or just whatever, which are not that hard to come by, and just like, yeah, that sounds good. But I don't even think he like read the MK Ultra case things. I don't think anybody at the bureau was like, "Hey, Suter, when you do this, make sure that like it's like it's like Captain America on the thing. Like he sees like the Tesseract in it. It's like you guys are working with Tesseract technology. I don't think it's like that. I think that Joshua Caleb Suter is just not retarded, and he just realized like, hey, if I just drug people and just keep using the power of suggestion, my own personality. I'm pretty Machiavellian, so I can probably get people to.
And not just that, but most of the people he was interacting with are like young people who are lost in life, and they probably don't have a great support network in their life either. So they look to this guy as an older guy, and giving him free beers and stuff. It's really easy to get a dumb kid to do something like that. Look at all these dumb autistic Muslim guys who are talked into planting a fake bomb provided to them by the FBI.
That's the funniest thing about MK, like of all the things. I mean, it's funny, it's not funny, but it's like who it doesn't
funny
work
queer,
on.
not
Yeah,
funny, haha.
yeah. It's like it works. It doesn't work on people that like just have friends and have support networks. Because there was one case where the Israelis tried to blackmail or tried to brainwash rather an Arab into killing Yasser Arafat, and they were like psychedelicing him, and they like let him loose on the Jordan, like he crossed the Jordan River. He immediately turned himself into Jordanian police and said, yeah, the Israelis tried to brainwash me into killing Arafat, so I'm turning myself in and giving you my gun in case like he thought that he might do it.
Yeah.
But it's really funny because I'm just imagining this is like this Mossad interrogator being like, oh, Mahmoud, you are all alone and nobody likes you and you get no bitches. And he's like a Palestinian, so he's like, no, I know for a fact that there are going to be guys coming into this prison and who are going to smuggle my sperm out in a ham sandwich and like squirt it into my wife. By the time I get out of here, I'm going to have 8 kids during my stay here. You know what I mean? It's like, no, people like me. Like I'm actually well respected in the community. I fight Israel. I'm actually a good person.
Yeah.
So I have friends. I have a support network. Like, yeah, but nobody is here for you. Nobody is coming for you. Muhammad.
You're all alone in the world. Your life is horrible. You may as well just shoot Yasser Arafat in the face.
Exactly. And he's just thinking like, nah, I'm fine. Like, when I get out of here, I have a wife and kids and parents and extended kin network that loves it. And so it just didn't. But he was like so convinced, like, shit, maybe they did get me. The idea you turn yourself in, it's like, I don't know. The guy was making compelling arguments. Maybe I am going to kill Yasser Arafat.
Yeah. And by the way, Shlomo, where I come from, we don't have everything I own in my house I had to buy with real money. I wasn't able to finance it either. So everyone likes me for who I really am.
Except my cat. He only likes me because I feed him. On
Well,
the
the cat
subject.
domesticated you, right? You're his
Oh,
pet.
oh, I
I
certainly
think the
feel that way.
worms are what domesticated me
Yeah,
with my
those will
cat.
get you. Listen, we're not going to talk toxoplasmosis right now. We were on the subject of war, just not so long ago. This thing you wrote, Marcel, and where they're healing veterans just to make them feel good about going back out again to
Moral
do it
injury, I think
again.
they
Yeah,
call it.
yeah. It's just that's one of the eeriest things. It was reminiscent of what like the Nordic berserker and that
This was
if you
something that I didn't
just
put in the articles. Couldn't find a source for it. I heard this secondhand from somebody close to me who's a veteran, and they said that Rick Perry was actually the one who got ketamine into like um as like a tool that there's like they have like ketamine lollipops in the army apparently, where like they tape it to your finger and then you just suck on it. And the idea is that eventually, like the way you regulate it is you suck on the ketamine lollipop until you just pass out, and then your hand will swing back down. And so that's how it moderates your doses. And this person that I know was saying, yeah, Rick Perry was the one who lobbied to get this put on skeleton. And I was like, if I could find even a single source for that, that would be fantastic.
That's
And I was
crazy.
I was like, I just don't see it. But
it's shit.
you see
Well,
what I'm saying, right? If I could
we'll
find a
do it.
source of
Oh
that, that
yeah,
would have like
Yeah,
clinched the whole thing.
that's a
no,
great little
that's
detail right there. Yeah. And that just shows like an intimate like desire to implement this as a policy and not just a passing interest because his story, as I recall in the article you mentioned, is that like, hey man, I saw some of the people who were, troops from my region, and they went over the border to check out some of this ketamine therapy, and I saw it really helped them, and so I said I'll do anything to help these guys, man, because I support the troops. And by the way, this is just like such a great way to like change boomers' opinion on this thing. By the
yes,
way,
exactly.
And the veteran he's
because
working with is Marcus Luttrell, who was this Navy SEAL. I don't remember what made Marcus Luttrell famous. He was like running for Congress. I think he got done in for some Iraq thing. Like, I don't know, he like shot somebody in Iraq and the libs made a big deal because it was murder, and he came back home and Bush pardoned him or something like that. Same deal with who's that black guy? Um
the sheriff Clark Sheriff David Clark.
no.
Cleavon Little.
Oh. Oh man, okay, I'm just gonna
It's a
be
Blazing Saddles sheriff. What was his name? No.
I don't know.
Uh,
I didn't get that reference, but
yeah,
yeah, no,
yeah.
I don't
There's
know
a
what guy
black
you're talking
sheriff in
about.
that movie.
once I
Um,
see him, I'll know him. But there were a bunch of these. I bet if I find like Max Blumenthal's book and okay, Alan West. Alan West was also in this genre. That's what I'm thinking of. Was also in this genre of people that, they got, they either got court-martialed or like just got like discharged before they could be court-martialed, and then became like Republican politicians. And Marcus Luttrell got a job on the Blaze on a similar basis, and he was also like he works for Maps now, and he's like the point man
Oh, they
for
call
Rick
it the
Perry.
Blaze, guys. Come on, be a
Yeah,
little less
exactly.
obvious.
The Blaze.
um, there was I think in this vicinity of the article, was the people over at TerraMind, talking about really just flat out referencing MKO, talking about it,
Yes.
making it known that they're aware of it and that there may be some, which is funny. You're kind of telling yourself a bit there,
Mm.
just bringing that up out of
Yeah, like the
context.
eagle-eyed among you may wonder if what we're doing is like MK Ultra, and we're not. MK Ultra was non-consensual. Oh, okay,
Well,
thank you.
I've got two
Cool.
eagle eyes,
What if
and
what if the what if the mental patient consents?
this is a big leap for them. Yeah.
I suppose, yeah. Now I
The
don't want to
opposite of
spoil
MK
too much.
Ultra. Spec Ops soldiers who've come home with invisible wounds. Bite
Mhm.
me. Spare me, please.
Now, I don't want to spoil too much, but we do have an episode coming up with our good friend Beyond Wogan Problematic coming up in a few weeks. And he or we rather are going to be talking about an art like a paper which speculates. I don't want to go too much into it, but it's probably pretty well known. But it sort of speculates that one of the sources for MK Ultra unwilling test subjects are the people who are the people who espouse the idea that they were contacted and abducted by aliens. Um, and this is actually like the phenomenon that you see from the 1970s until 1990s, and mysteriously stopped after that. By the way,
Mm.
may be explained
Men
by
in
the fact that
Black.
these people, these men in black, or these aliens were visiting them and doing odd experiments on their bodies and their brains and stuff. And that's a really interesting thing. But
Hmm.
the reason I bring it up, though, also is because I don't know if you've looked into any of this. We recently did a Substack episode on the shape of things to come. This paper from the Department of Defense, and it's like a speculative sort of treatise on future military applications for direct brain computer interfaces and stuff. And when I see this stuff in tandem with like the whole push for psychedelics and like sort of transhumanism, and for like this, Elon Musk is simultaneously promoting the use of ketamine and taking DMT and stuff and smoking weed on Joe Rogan, and then also developing these this
At
Neuralink.
least he's taking it. I will grant to Elon Musk, he's getting high on his own supply. Whatever he's pushing it, he believes it. Elon Musk
That's
genuinely
true,
believes
yeah.
that ketamine
Well, I
is
think
going to
he's
make
just
him
like
smarter.
literally retarded.
Yeah.
If he was an ad for ketamine, I'd be like, yeah, I'll take some. This guy
If he was
looks
an
like he's having a
amphetamine, I'd
goofy good
never take
time.
it.
Wow.
Oh, no, he looks
If
like
it
he's
if
having
it if
fun.
it if it has any sort of impact on me that makes me think I should get hair plugs, I'm out.
But Scott, don't you want to have a thorax? What is up with that, man?
Did he get
You
like
ever
a
notice
fake,
that?
like, did he get a fake like torso or something too?
I don't know. He has a strange upper chest. It kind of looks like a bug. Um,
I
uh,
have wondered about that.
yeah, and Bill Gates is the same thing. He's got weird proportions if you
They probably just
catch him
had
at the
like
right
that like
angle.
sunken chest thing, the concave chest, and they probably just got like some
Mm.
sort of thing to make that not. I don't know.
It's weird they
What do I
both
know?
have it.
I shouldn't be deriding these men based on such
Listen, we can ask questions. Elon Musk got a weird looking chest. Actually, the thing
I
that I
think
look
he's
at
a
Elon
bug,
Musk,
is what I'm getting
he's
at. He's a bug. He's a big bug
it's like
man.
Vincent D'Onofrio in the Men in Black
In Men in
movie.
Black, yeah, he really
Yes.
does look like that. His face even
Yes.
looks like that. Yeah.
All right. Now we're cooking here. Now,
Well, if
now
you're ever
this might
watching
be.
Elon Musk, like if you ever seen him on camera, Elon Musk like really wants to just cut off both of his arms. He's someone who really does not know what to do with his hands at any time.
Yeah.
Like go
He's
watch
always
Elon
like
Musk video, and
playing with things.
yes, Elon Musk, if he's like standing next to somebody, his hands are like basically out like this all the time. He's like
He does the
just trying to
Yeah.
figure
Naruto
out,
run when he's in a hurry.
yeah, like he just doesn't know what to put, where to put him, what to do with him.
And it
So
kind
he'll
of checks out because if he has no hands, he can't drive a car. So hence
that's why he wants to. Yeah, he's like
all the
that's he wants to be like the worm from Dune. Like he just want to. It's just his head on a worm body,
Harkonnen.
no arms or legs to worry about what to do with them. Just in a
Who is
self-driving
his Duncan
vehicle.
Idaho then?
Hmm.
Who
Hmm.
would it be that is around him? I guess Grimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like
Clones
his
of
hair.
Grimes. She's already a
It,
clone, I'm
it's
sure.
it's his like indirect harem of people that like he just mails his sperm to them, but he doesn't actually fuck them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard. Have you heard the rumor? I'm sure that he has no penis anymore or something, and that's why he keeps having to have these. Um,
Oh, okay. I've heard a variant of that, but yeah,
Oh,
that
we're
he
off the
has
deep
some kind of
end.
hardware issue.
yeah. All right.
And
Well, let's not stop
that's actually
speculating about penises.
well, that's
Yeah.
actually reminiscent. We're gonna keep doing that about Harvey Weinstein too. I
Yes,
heard
that's
something
where
about.
sort of the germ of that theory I think came from. Is that like there was a speculation that he had a botched penis surgery or something, and ergo is no longer able to like perform, and therefore that's why he keeps sort of to overcompensate for the lack
Hmm.
of performance, he is impregnating all these women because clearly he has
Just
the
because you
funds for
fall
it.
flat on your face doesn't mean you got to drop out of the race. All right,
So
evolution is a game that
true.
you play to win, and you have multiple kids. I'm not gonna shame him for that as such,
Don't
unless of course it was self inflicted on a like cosmetic dick surgery. I'll make fun of him for that. But
Yeah.
if you say, listen, I'm not gonna bow out of the Darwin race, like, okay, yeah, listen, man, shine on. Um, I know what's his name, Razor Fist. I don't know if you guys know him on YouTube, but
Heard of him, never watched his stuff.
he does he has like he has a video series on Michael Jackson on how Michael Jackson was innocent, which I found very convincing.
Agree,
But then
agree.
he had another one
MJ apologism.
for what's this guy's name? The coach Sandusky.
Sandusky, yes,
yeah.
I know the guy you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah, there's
The
a guy in our
scapegoat
group chat that has
mechanism
really
in
put me on the
effect.
Sandusky is innocent thing. And
And one of his was similar, that like Jerry Sandusky is like physically incapable of like molesting or raping anybody, and like I don't remember the exact reason. But
What
yeah,
is this,
Razorfist
like?
has videos about this.
yeah, I thought he had like what's that, Klinefelter's disease or something? He can't
Something
get
like
hard.
this, yeah.
Yeah.
That reminds me of True Detective. Sorry, a stupid pop culture reference, but
They
he
could have been
drags this
referencing that then. A
because
real thing.
there's a thing where they drag this kind of Momo kid into the trailer to see it, to rough him up and see if he's the killer, but he got castrated in Angola prison and is not capable of doing any kind of such thing. So he's not. Sorry to spoil it, but th- I mean, who knows? It's the scapegoat mechanism in effect. The fact that there's
Yeah.
there was one guy, there's two guys. Yeah. But if we're on the topic of you know, these types, what about Rogan? I don't know if we really you know gotten too much in, and I don't know,
I mean,
Marcel, if
what we
you
we have a full episode on it already, but so what would
yeah.
you like to highlight to Marcel, since our audience is probably fairly hip on it. Although it is a bonus episode, so only a proportion of the listeners would. What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, especially when you brought up the upcoming episode that coincides with the black helicopter talk
Yeah.
that you alluded to, Marcel, in the article that Jones was back when Alex Jones might
Oh,
have
Alex
been
Jones talking
called
about Fleur,
yeah, exactly.
forward-looking infrared is totally real. Yes.
Yes, so that's the kind of thing we're talking
And in that
about.
video, it's really funny because, like, yeah, they just talked about it on like the local news. I was just literally just telling you what was there.
It reminds me of like cloning the sheep. What was her name? Nancy?
Dolly.
Dolly? Yeah.
I remember
Uh,
Alex Jones and that he was right
we
about it,
never
but
talked about that again.
something I
Weird.
brought up. I don't know if I brought up in the article, but there, you've seen the video where Alex Jones and not Joe, Jesus Christ, Jesse Ventura are
Sure.
looking for like FEMA camps,
Follow the money.
and they find the facility, and it's like, what kind of prison has a playground in it and like 100,000?
Chill out with the Holocaust revisionism.
No, 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 no. Oh, I see what you're saying. No, no. But they actually did find it. But the thing that they found, it was an ICE detention facility, and in particular, it is the exact same one that AOC was crying in front of. So the thing that Jesse Ventura and Alex Jones, like, this is a concentration camp for American citizens, is the precise same one. The AOC was like, there are children being kept in the facility. It's like, wow, it's like bipartisanism.
That just speaks to the fact that they're directed to some degree or another. All of these people whose names we know is that they all got to this place for a reason. That they all went to this particular,
Well, I think it's just one of the biggest ICE facilities. I think it's just
That's
like
sure.
it just is what it is.
So it wasn't in the memo. But no, I mean, especially with Jones and Ventura going there and just blatantly
saying that it's a
doing that thing that they do.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm sure that it's
it's like, so it's U.S. citizens are going to be kept in this. Like, actually, I guess in theory, once it's proved that you are a U.S. citizen, you immediately leave.
Get
The
to
whole
leave,
point,
yeah.
the whole point is that you're not a citizen. That's why you go here.
Well, it may be
Isn't
the
it
fact
true,
that
though?
some U.S. citizens are in there up
Oh,
until
yeah,
it's proven. So
Yeah.
correct on the technicality.
Yeah. But yeah, no. What were you saying?
These
Something about
people all
Joe
suck.
Rogan, though. I mean, what besides? I mean, like, it's been done to death. Or
Yeah,
we've done it to death, I should say.
fair.
But yeah, no. I will say this though. Greatest hits of these people. That guy who's Matt Staggs is like the booker for is the booker for Joe Rogan Experience, and he worked for a company called Disinfo.
Exactly.
The disinformation company, also known as, which was founded by Richard Metzger, not no relation to Tom or Kurt Metzger. Um, and he is a Satanist, Crowley Satanist. And they had a TV show on BBC Channel 4. Interestingly, also the place that what's that guy's name? John Ronson was funded to go do that Bohemian Grove documentary with Alex Jones. Um, and this disinfo company put out the all of Alex Jones's documentary movies like Police State 1 through 4. And I think there's one called Prison Planet too, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken.
Endgame.
That was the name of his website, Prison
Was
Planet and Infowars. He had two websites. I think
Yeah.
one of them was a news aggregator, and one of them was the like the
Yeah.
podcast and everything.
Prison Planet was
yeah.
the news aggregator, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But I think he had a movie called Prison Planet too, which, by the way, also it's like you're doing Gnostic theology. I get what you're doing there with the fucking Prison Planet
Yeah.
shit, dude.
And
Oh yeah.
he does a lot, yeah. A lot of his just in passing expressions really are just
Yeah, the
obvious.
Excalibur reference, the Excalibur,
Yeah, which is a
which is a
Kino.
direct reference to the Psywar paper that we were talking about before with Michael Aquino.
Yeah.
Michael Aquino refers to the information being utilized as a weapon that we can envision as Excalibur. And if once we pull Excalibur, we must use it. Um, and there's clips and clips of Alex Jones saying like, "I have the truth is my Excalibur, and I choose to use it." And it's like, dude, like, tell me you're fucking what you're doing without telling me what you're doing. Like, this is crazy that you're so nakedly espousing this like military intelligence jargon, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, almost like you have a copy sitting on your bedside table, you read it and for
And
fun.
it's no mistake too
Or
that
it's drilled into his head by MK Ultra.
yeah, this sure. This or what's his name? JM Beam is probably more like likely than fucking MK Ultra with Alex Jones. But I was just gonna say though is the the thing with the Michael Aquino stuff. Um, I guess I asked you earlier, Marcel, if you're familiar um with the Franklin scandal. So this guy is like, it's amazing that this guy who's like so deeply tied into like child abuse is like a major figure and mover within like the Pentagon's like theoretical departments and is like really shaped the landscape of like what our everyday discourse is about. Like I remember particularly during 2020 COVID bullshit, there was the whole like misinformation, disinformation. They just outlined this stuff in the
And
Psywar paper.
malinformation.
Malinformation, yeah.
They had
They
that third
outlined this
category.
this entire taxonomy within the Psywar paper and go, this is going to be a way that we're going to combat information we don't want getting out. We're going to
Mm.
call it misinformation, and then we're going to tell people in other countries that things that are not true are, or things that are true are disinformation.
Mm.
And it's this stuff, and it's like it's all this stuff is coming to roost now. It's really amazing that we've like they just tell you what they're gonna do 30 years before they do it.
On the
Oh,
on the
information overload is a thing from Future Shock from that Alvin Toffler.
oh full stuff.
Um,
Um the oh shit, I lost it. God dang with
Spit it out.
no, you got me thinking about Toffler now.
I'm
When
bailing on you in three.
Bale, go ahead. Shit.
I'm pulling out. All right, but anyway, I think we've done enough. Marcel, you're looking tired. Thank you for joining us on the
Eh,
show. Is there anything else you want to talk about in the article that we haven't hit?
okay, let me just blitz through it. So Christians getting into it, Cernovich saying that, oh, Jesus is like armor, and so you can oh yeah, smuggling it into Christians by using psychedelics as proof of God. And I didn't even ask this, by the way. Scott, are you Christian or are you both Christian? I actually don't know.
Yeah, I generally
I'd like
speaking
to
would
be.
I would yeah, I try to be.
Okay, because that was
That
one of the angles they were
that's
pushing, is the idea that you can use psychedelics to like experience the supernatural, and you know Jesus is like a Geller field where you're entering the warp, where if you like pray the
The
rosary strong
Omnissiah,
enough, you
yeah.
can enter the spiritual realm with this kind of thing. Also, the reason I said is because you had mentioned like Gnostic theology before, and this kind of goes into this, like the other thing Guillermo is known for, is for basically being like a secular Marcionist,
Hmm.
because of his like super anti-Old Testamentism. I thought like, oh, there's like a slight digression to have about this, but this is not like your thing that we can just leave it.
Oh, I'm very, very familiar with Gnostic stuff too. Also, I've done a pseudo. Well, I've been like we've been reading through the Bible in the in episodes, and I kind of agree with a lot of the characterizations made about Old Testament divinity, where it's like you have to genocide these group, genocide that group. It doesn't seem like the same guy that they're talking about in the New Testament. Um,
Well,
you know
one
what I
thing
mean?
that Guillermo points out, and it's something that I never would have thought of in like the early Yahweh to Zion, which we're doing in the book club. So that's my primary shill, by the way. Everybody should join. Follow me on Twitter at Anarchy and Black, subscribe to my Substack, and join the
Yep,
book club. I'll give you guys links to all that.
we'll put
But
it.
it's something that did always kind of get me when I was younger. There was a, can you explain why all these apostles were like willing to die on the risen Christ and so on and so forth? And Guillermo points out like none of these guys died on the Nicene Creed, right? Like none of these guys died on like a body and blood resurrection
Yeah.
of Christ. Paul never mentions an empty tomb, for example. And so it's entirely possible. It's like, if you were to say like, either say Christ didn't rise or die, and they're like, no, I saw him rise, he's alive. And it's like, okay, so you're saying you saw him in the flesh and you put your fingers in his bloody holes. It's like, oh, pause, no. Like it's entirely possible those guys might have been Gnostics in that sense, where it's like, oh no, 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 it was a spiritual resurrection. Another thing he brings up is that this is like just a 30-second primer on Gnosticism, but it was this thing that had been sticking in my mind, um, where he points out that when Paul describes the witnesses to the risen Christ, he includes himself, but Paul seeing Christ was like a spirit vision on the
Yeah, you got
road.
zapped. You got zapped by a lightning bolt or something.
Yeah, and so if all the apostles saw the same thing he saw, then that would seem to suggest that what they saw was not a body incarnation. So I was thinking about that. But if you guys want to, if anybody wants to chew me out on why that's like really stupid,
Go to
I'll
the
totally,
fucking Discord and
yeah,
argue
join my
with him.
Discord and join the book club and see if you make it past vetting and try to convince it. But when I heard it, I was like, son of a bitch, that would explain how a bunch of like, from my perspective, like non-crazy people could nonetheless like die on this truth that they had seen something, because it's only now looking back that we simply presume that they were Nicenes, which by
Sure.
definition they, right, it's like, okay, let's see what else was there to talk about. So entheogenics, Peter Thiel, narco-capitalism, PTSD, moral injury. So for those who we
Stefan
mentioned earlier,
Molyneux.
was Molyneux into psychedelics? Did I say he
No,
was?
I actually think Stefan Molyneux. What pisses me off
What pisses me
about.
off about the
yeah.
push on psychedelics? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yorm Hazoni, I talked about. Um, oh, the mentor to student lineage of Jordan Peterson, being taught by his psychiatry professor to do psychedelics, and like it passes through
Yeah.
in this linear
Or how
way.
about the MK Ultra? I assume things they did to him in Russia with the ketamine or the what do you call it? The Xanax
Yeah, to
treatments.
detox him. Exactly. Okay, let's see what other things. Rick
DMT
Doblin,
elves
just
are
you guys read
racist.
the article. Rick
Yeah, Rick
Perry, et cetera, et
Doblin
cetera.
is spooked out to 6 ways from Sunday, and also, by the way, early life needed.
Yeah, I mean he brags about it.
Yeah.
Uh, the other Rebecca Mercer. Rebecca Mercer is a big time Republican donor who also funds Tucker Carlson's show on X.
Yep.
She's like
She
one of the
also was the
main
backer of the Gavin McInnes website as well.
the Rebel News.
No, not that's Ezra Levant. No, it was the one that he had started to be like they started I forget what it was called, but it was like Jim
Red
Goad.
Ice.
not Red Ice. It was Jim Goad, Gavin McInnes, and a couple other people, but it was all like, not criticizing Israel, Republican stuff, obviously. And they ended up
Compound censored.
that's what it is now. But I think when it started out, it was just called censored.tv, and it was actually initially funded by the Mercers.
Yeah. Let's see what else.
It's called Compound Censored now because Anthony Cumia is involved.
I guess Russell Brand and who's the guy? Robin Carhart Harris is like another big pusher of this. I'm just scrolling through the articles, seeing like,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
else
no, no.
like, we need to
Russell
see.
Brand, by the way, he's already compromised. He's a repeated sex criminal.
Yep,
And it's coming to roost now. So I mean, it's like talk about people are easy to get to push a message.
yep. Tim Pool, Pod Save America. You can just read the article.
They told Tim
Uh,
that his hair would grow back if he started taking it.
Christian Angermeyer. Okay, yeah, everything else just falls into the article.
I thought Pod Save
Uh,
America was libtard.
yeah, but they push psychedelics too. So,
Oh, okay.
and Tim Pool is also theoretically a liberal too, even though he works for the
Yeah,
Daily
that's
Wire.
cute.
Yeah, exactly.
He has a liberal definition of having hair.
Yeah, so Gottlieb, Sirhan, Suter. Okay, yeah, I think we've covered just about everything in the article. So yeah, follow me on Twitter, Substack, join book club, and was this live stream? Should I have like shared this
Nope.
before I even got
Nope.
on?
It comes out on Sunday.
Okay, great. So I'll share it.
But yeah, so thank you again, Marcel, for coming. It was great to meet you. Great to talk to you. We'll have you back sometime. Next time you have a big expose, I'd like to help promote it. And also, I'd like to share some of my resources that we have come across for your next project, perhaps, because I think I can fill in a lot of the blanks as
So my
far
two
as the
upcomings, or really, I guess my primary upcoming these days is I'm doing I am working on a book about sort of the origins of conservative alt media. So it kind of pivots off of this, but
right.
looking into the creation of like Daily Wire. Actually, I should have practiced this pitch. I know one person who's going to be upset with me that I don't have this memorized right now. Give me a second. So I would be looking into um, first the censorship of the right under the New Deal. So there's an article about this in the Young's Review. People like Father Coughlin, Billy James Hargis, Carl McIntyre, who were shut down by the Fairness Doctrine. The rise of like Con Inc. So Town Hall, Fox News front page, Newsmax,
Buckley.
TAC, things like Reason Magazine, Drudge, and you can actually once I started arranging these things in order, you can really count the rings. So the fact that Daily Caller and Blaze came out in the same year, and then later on, what did I have? The Daily Wire and Rebel Media both came out the same year,
That's
and
crazy.
then a year later, Babylon B. You can really see the
Common thread, common curlicue between these things.
yeah. Epic Times, Infowars,
Never
VDare,
forget,
Infowars.
InfoWars, by the way, is a corporation that's based in Tel Aviv. Never, don't tell people.
That I did
Never,
not know.
yeah,
Okay,
never, don't tell people that. And
okay,
that's
that's
why it
actually
still like fucking exists, even though he got sued into oblivion. By the way,
He's
yeah. So
looking
I want
great.
to look into all that and give a coherent story of this because I think we're now deep enough in. Michael Malice, all right. He has this
Kretschmer,
book.
I think you mean to say.
Yeah, Michael Kretschmer. Yeah, exactly. This is a friend of mine's writing an article about this too, by the way. But yeah, Michael Kretschmer has his, the new right book. But I think this needs like a proper retelling as to how we got from Fox News to this. And really, what you get is like as soon as the first Bush administration, that is, the first Bush, his administration was done, you just saw like the game's rigged from the start. I mean,
Yeah.
everything is.
You probably think you got a 20 carat run of
Yeah, exactly.
bad luck, but sorry to tell you that the bris was rigged from the start.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I actually also just if you're interested, we also have a very good episode where a couple episodes about Michael Malice, but also particularly one where William and I did where we read the book about him, Ego and Hubris, which I don't know if you've read it before, but it makes him look like a piece of shit. It makes him look like the worst piece of shit. I
Well,
can't
he's
believe he
shameless,
tells
so I
people.
mean, yeah, he doesn't feel things the
But
way
he
you
like
and I do.
really sort of admits into all of his like his sort of tribal
No, they exalt in that. They don't feel shame the way you and I do. For them, it's like, aren't I disgusting? Like, aren't I repulsive? It's like, ain't I a stinker? Was it Bugs Bunny?
Yeah. I'm a bad widow boy.
Hmm.
Yeah, he is Gabbo. But okay, so I think we did it. Marcel, thank you for coming to the show. For us,
Thank you, Marcel.
www.historyhomos.com for the RSS feed. We're also available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, Rockfin, and most importantly, join us at historyhomospod.substack.com. That's historyhomospod.substack.com. If you like this, you get 100% more show for a low monthly fee, meaning we have a full episode every week, and it's exactly the same amount of show. It's not some bullshit we get together and go, oh fuck, what are we going to talk about? There's something constructed that we discuss every single week, and
Like the constructive discussion we had just now.
obviously,
Oh,
and yeah, so yeah, come join us over there if you enjoy the show, and also you can join us anywhere on social media, History Homos Pod. That's Instagram and Twitter. And at time of recording, our Telegram group is still the friendliest place on the internet. So get to us at t.me/historyhomos is the channel, and t.me/historyhomos chat is the chat. Please enter and join the fray. And but you will be expected to say some sort of slur in order to prove that you're not a bot in order to get into the group. So just fair warning. But other than that, if you have any
choice.
questions, comments, or concerns, or you'd like to buy a History Homos T-shirt, which has Ted Kaczynski on it, incidentally, you can
Don't
or
stand
email
by
me
the
your size
sacrilege.
and address at historyhomos@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Die with dignity. Patrick, what would you like to say before we hit the road?
What's up, Doc?
Click, click, the screen lights up your mind. Buy a better truth, leave the old one behind. Smiling suits in pastel ties, selling acid skies and alibi lies. You're feeling free, but the leash is chrome. Piped in joy from a corporate home. Dancing in the glow of a branded sun while they count your soul like a loaded gun. Neon dreams for sale, plug in and decay. Synthetic peace in a candy shell bouquet. They dose the masses, keep the truth unseen. High on colors, low on gasoline. Drip-fed visions from the market church. Preacher's got a badge and a data search. No fire in your chest, no hunger in your eyes. Just a tranquilized cheer for your own demise. Flash those teeth, you're a model drone. Wage slave chic in a pleasure zone. Pop another tab from the ad campaign. See the gear spin gold in your paper brain. Neon dreams for sale, plug in and decay. Synthetic peace in a candy shell bouquet. They dose the masses, keep the truth unseen. High on colors, low on gasoline. Imagine a world where the revolution is televised and sponsored by soft drinks, where you fight the system with the latest designer high, tailored to numb, programmed to pacify.
Dumas clones, you